What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Valley coming at you with the one, the only, the certified fantabulous Grant Hughes. It's time for HardwoodKnocks to gather everyone together and talk about the biggest questions we have coming out of the NBA All-Star break. This is being recorded because we have fun content planned for you during the NBA's little week off, but it's being recorded before the All-Star game. So we're not reacting to what All-Star weekend looked like with the NBA really tapping into the content creator well. That's really overwhelming us with content is the plan. I don't know who's planning those things, but maybe it went better than we expected. These questions, though, are evergreen in the sense of we're still going to have them a few days from now. Mm-hmm. How are you feeling, Grant, as we get ready for our All-Star break, but then also for the final closing kick of the season?
Just mostly, I just sort of can't wait to see what all the seemingly preteen influencers that I am not familiar with bring to the table or brought to the table. Maybe I should phrase this like as if we just watched All-Star Weekend and we're like, man, that was some terrific content creation and by people that I definitely know who they are.
Right. Same. I think I've just come to look at it as the All-Star Weekend. It's for a certain demographic. It's for younger people, which I think is fine. But I do think the NBA is doing a disservice by making so much of it about not actual basketball. There's nothing in the rule book that says the youths don't care about, but the whole point should be to promote the actual sport and their whole just like really leading into the TikTokification, but it doesn't have anything to do with like the actual basketball is bizarre to me. And also it's stop trying. I don't like the team versus world format. It's stupid. It made the selections and replacements just unnecessarily convoluted. There's players who are like on one team and now are on a different team. I don't want to get into it. Maybe it was awesome. Maybe these words just age so incredibly poorly. I don't think they will. Let's move on to our biggest questions draft style. You're going to get the first pick because you just killed it on another exercise that's going to be going live either before or after this, and you did a hell of a job. So this is your reward.
All right. Well, let's see. There's like kind of a little batch that we definitely need to address that are bigger picture. So I'm going to pull from one of those just because I don't know, that's kind of the most important stuff to discuss. So let's go, Dan, with which Eastern Conference team has the most at stake ahead of this offseason, which I took to mean a non-lottery division. So teams that one will actually be watching down the stretch because there's a whole bunch we can just that I'm going to tune out for. Don't know what your approach is going to be. And
I'm only watching the Kings.
Yeah. First of all, you're fighting the question because this is an Eastern Conference question. Unless the Kings get relegated to the Eastern Conference, which is possible, I suppose. I'm taking this to mean down the stretch
that
of
was
this
the
season,
NBA's relegation, which you got moved
you have to go to the
like
East.
Yeah.
Sorry. So the way this is phrased is ahead of the offseason and the full question. It's really just kind of like, do you disagree that this is mostly about like, based on how the season progresses from now on to how it ends for this team, like the most might change. There might be, the stakes are highest. The most at stake is right in the question, but it's like this encompasses playoff performance for me. Is that the same for you? Or are you just, okay, it's not just like they need to get this seed and then we stop caring. It's the whole deal from now till the end of the league year, basically, right?
Yes, that's how I would approached it.
Why isn't it your New York Knicks, who the owner who never speaks came out and said that the finals are just like we expect to make the finals? Why is that not the answer?
I'm not saying it's not. I would say they are for sure a candidate, but I would argue they're limited in what they could do because let's just say they get bounced from the first round. What's the move? You trade anyone you trade, you just get worse. Short of Giannis Antetokounmpo going full James Harden circa Houston Rockets in, what was that, 2020? 2020? 2000,
who can say how many trade demands ago it was?
But his most egregious one was not egregious, but his most forceful one was the first one, right?
Well, let's see. Not the Thunder one, not Thunder to Rockets. That was not super egregious.
That wasn't even a request. That was just they didn't want to pay him.
Yeah, they didn't want to pay him.
I guess his departure from it needs to be James.
That's a whole episode, by the way. Power ranking the seriousness of James Harden's trade request. Go on, sorry.
And so short of that happening, I just don't know what the Knicks are supposed like. They'll have 2 tradable first round picks, but do you get better if you attach 2 first round picks to Karl Anthony Towns for what? And for
No,
who?
yeah.
You're not going to trade Jalen Brunson and start over. My pick would be the Cavs. James
Right. Yeah, I
Harden's
think
current team.
yeah, you're right. That's why it's not the Knicks. I was kind of trolling you, and two, the only case you make for the Knicks is that the stakes are high because any significant disappointment sort of can only be remedied by a very drastic move. Like it's not like they're going to tinker. So the stakes are high in that sense. But to your point, they really can't like whatever qualifies as drastic for them. Just is like, how do we get off towns, basically? So it's not them. I agree, it's the Cavs. Do you want to? We got to go through the teams that it just isn't. Well, like the Celtics, gap year, found money, like nothing at stake here. If they get swept in the first round, everybody's like, good season relative to expectations, right?
Right.
Pistons, similar. The fact that they're like, if they got smoked in the first round, is there anything at stake? Because then that would just make them do the move we thought they should do then they'll go make the go for it move, which good.
We have a question that kind of dovetails with this, but the case for the Pistons would be this is their best chance to win a championship. This
is a take of yours that I'm really into. I really enjoy that, like framing it that way, because it doesn't feel like it could be right, but it also could very, very much be right. Because like, how often are you going to just run away with a conference?
Right.
And it's hard to do this.
The other thing is every team that we've identified as just, they're still going to be there. Something has happened where in 2 or 3 years, they're not at this level anymore. So you just look at the circumstances of the East right now. Boston, you said, found money. Maybe Jason Tatum comes back, but this isn't going to be peak Boston Celtics, even if you think Boston's the biggest threat. The Knicks are just they were eminently beatable for the Pistons last year. They just didn't. They're eminently beatable now. The Cavs have been on fire even before. They have the best record in the NBA since like before the new year. So this predates Darius Garland getting moved. There's also just something about their playoff performances and even their durability and their lack of overall physicality and pure wing depth. That's not a team I'm afraid of. Philly is such a wild card. Toronto is like, they're better than expected, but they're not. I'm not worried. If I'm the Pistons, I'm not worried about Toronto. So there's that element of the East. Orlando not doing that. Orlando, by the way, could be another candidate for this.
I was gonna say, like, there are a couple other teams we need to talk about, not on the Cavs level. And Orlando's definitely one of them, right? Because we're very much in the cycle of questioning the Paolo of it all as a first option again. Like, here we are questioning Jamal Mosley as an offensive coach. What are they? As we're recording this, they're in the play-in, game and a half out of 6th, and just not going to win the 50 plus games that a lot of people saw coming.
Raise his hand.
That was the consensus.
Are they the best alternative to? Because we're going to talk more Pistons later.
Yeah.
Is Orlando the best? I think the answer is pretty clearly the Cavs because of you just traded. You got so much older, and this clearly is a move. You were either planning on doing something dramatic, or you're worried about Donovan Mitchell remaining committed to you.
Yes.
I think Orlando might be the next best choice, though, unless you want to go with Milwaukee.
So that was the other team, and they're a lottery team at the moment, and probably will stay there. So they don't technically qualify, but in a different way, they do deserve some mention, just because. I mean, what's at stake? I guess
Cam
Giannis
Thomas's
leaving,
next contract, man.
His next like him coming back, getting hurt, trying to get them into the 10th spot or so. Like, it's a weird set of stakes, but like for a team that just isn't good, the potential fallout for what happens over the last 30 games of the year for them is weirdly significant. Like, they're not playing for anything really, except Giannis maybe wants to. I don't know how much that's posturing. But
you could do the reverse too of, are they playing to improve their draft pick, in the sense they're getting the less favorable of their own, and New Orleans is, but New Orleans is so bad that the worse you are, it ensures that you have a chance of still getting a pretty high pick.
Yeah, no, they have a lot at stake. Just I wouldn't pick them just because that they're not like, well, technically they're excluded as a lottery team, but also because the spirit of this question is kind of like just all the giant like neon arrows are pointing at the Cavs. Like that's the answer. We didn't even talk. The Harden trade is obviously the main, and the desperation that seemed to fuel it with respect to Mitchell's future. The other thing is, like, they've disappointed in the last, is it two, at least the last two postseasons. And had they done nothing with the roster, and if they were first in the conference right now behind the old Big Four and everything was going great, if they were on the same pace they were last year, for example, when they won 64, they would be the answer anyway. Like they would still be the answer because they're very much in like the prove it territory of their arc. And now just adding to that is the desperation of the Harden move. I don't think there's a close second. I mentioned the Knicks just to bother you.
I think they're a candidate, but I think I'd pick the Magic as number 2. The other thing looming over the Cavs, it's not just the James Harden trade. It's what do we do with James Harden after this season? He has a player option. And also, I respect what he said in that press conference. I didn't watch the full clip where he said loyalty is overrated. He's 100% right. The way he's gone about some of his trade demands are no doubt frustrating to fans. And then some of the effort level we've seen from him on the court, like during some of those reports, trade demand, the Houston trade demand, and like the whole Philly holdout stuff. But like, he's right. So this is someone who's going to follow the money. Now, so few teams have cap space again after the trade deadline. Where is he really going to go? But if they're not willing to, if he just picks up his player option, they're not willing to talk about an extension. Do we get another James Harden trade demand?
Don't you assume that they, prior to trading for him, like laid out, hey, here's what we're thinking, like contract wise, like that's got to be in place.
That also contributes to what's at stake then, because now you've committed to age 36 James Harden. If this isn't it, what if you get bounced in the first round, but like in the 3-6 matchup or something? That could happen.
Yeah. I mean, that if that happens, and we're going to throw out a lot of ifs, if that happens, and if you didn't just predetermine, hey, Harden's going to get, like, I don't know what, is it going to be more than a 1+1? Can it? Is it a 2+1? That would be insane if that's what was potentially on offer. But like,
he's going to run into the over 38 rule, so you can't get longer than that, which I guess is a good thing. But I feel like any of his deals are going to have that. It'll just have a player option in year 2, and so you're still kind of you're
immediately on the clock. You're immediately on the clock. Like you're permanently on the clock now for the rest of James Harden's career. But if things go badly and whatever, they don't give him a new deal, then that trade starts to look even more like we just didn't believe in Darius Garland like at all, and we just want it out. We want they're not a flexible team because they have so many other big contracts, but like they just decided they'd rather rent Harden for a postseason, watch him walk, and just not have Darius Garland's contract on the books. Like that line of thinking becomes like more plausible, which feels crazy to me. But if you end up there, then maybe that really was more of a motivator than it might seem. That there's some wild outcomes for the Cavs, like a pretty broad set of possible. Like do you just trade Donovan Mitchell? Like, I don't know. There's like, depending on how gnarly the and then disappointment is possible.
If you go that route, you also have to decide, okay, Jared Allen, you could probably move, but then you have to decide, is Evan Mobley worth rebuilding around? And it feels like the decision would have been easier to make. Are Darius Garland and Evan Mobley worth rebuilding around?
Yeah. No, there's a lot that could happen here. So it's clearly, to me, it's very clearly them, and Orlando is probably second, but it's a pretty different set of circumstances.
Let's go here. Which Eastern Conference player to you, Grant, has the most at stake the rest of this season? Non-Cavs division, since we already recycled, because you could argue it's James Harden, but I mean, he's gonna land on his feet whatever happens. It seems like he's kind of finds a way. Honestly, good for him.
Yeah. Okay, so some of this will be. So it can't be Cade Cunningham, I don't think, because I guess if he, in the unlikely event that he disappoints in the postseason, I guess you like, what would be reevaluated then? Like, oh no, actually he's not because what will happen is if the Pistons fail, it'll probably be because just the offense around him isn't good enough. And I don't feel like that's going to get held against him. So even though he's the best player on the top seed, I kind of don't feel like he's going to catch, and it won't deserve to catch most of the heat. I'm kind of leaning. I think it might be Banchero. Is that?
Oh man, we have the same pick.
Is that a crazy take? Oh, good. So tell me why because that was the first name that jumped to mind.
Yeah, it was for me too, and I think some of or much of the discourse has probably been overstated, and he has gotten more efficient, shooting 40% from three, I think, since the middle of January. But when you talk about and think about the Magic, I think it's fair to say, well, it'd be nice to see this group, one, fully healthy, but two, perhaps they just need a different coach to change up the offense. But even if they decide to go that route, then let's say they move on from Jamal Mosley. That's it. The cover for Paolo Banchero is gone. And
Mhm.
all like people will then zero in even further on some of this lineup data that shows they're better when Franz plays without him. And I think there's a ton of noise that could go in there. I believe I'm still highest on Paolo Banchero long term of any. I mean, it's between him and Franz, but it does get tougher to defend when this team, which already doesn't have a good offense, is worse offensively with him on the court. And you're starting to have to deal with that. It's good that he signed his extension when he did, because I think that had they waited to restricted free agency to max him out, or does he even get the max after this season? Probably, just because he's played well overall. But now we're looking again. How many straight years? It happened last year. They were better offensively without him on the court. And there are so many things that I think he brings to the table, just his meld of balletic brute force. You wish he was like, I don't know, 10 to 20% more efficient from basically everywhere on the floor.
Yeah.
I just, as a Paolo Banchero defender, I will continue to defend him. But when you're dealing with 3 straight seasons of the offense being worse with him on the court, and we can point to excuses, including his own injuries, the injuries around him, the lack of spacing has done nothing for him. The Magic have consistently rated in like the 0th percentile, basically, of complementary floor spacing. But when you're making that big of money, you get to a point where it's figure it out.
Yeah.
And the fact that, that also contributes to why the Magic have the most at stake, because I don't think it's exclusively a Paolo Banchero thing. I don't know if the entire supporting cast, or I shouldn't say I don't know, I believe that it is somewhat counterintuitive. I think it can work. We've seen it from their top-end unit, but if you can't count on Suggs or Wagner or even Banchero to be healthy for a given clip, that gets messy. Now let's throw in Anthony Black's extension eligibility into the equation. Paolo Banchero just perceptionally, again, I think too much of the discourse veers away from the talent and sometimes actually what's happening, to where you look at it, oh, Paolo Banchero's first 15 games or whatever, that narrative takes on a life of its own and is applied to the entire season. But the concerns also, as much as Magic fans want to push back, they are absolutely real. And is there anything he can do to change that before the offseason at this point?
Well, so that's I'm glad you asked, because I think for him specifically, it's I'm viewing, I know the question is asking like who's got the most at stake between now and the off season, and that encompasses the rest of the regular season. To me, the rest of the regular season for Paolo just like doesn't really matter, except insofar as it like positions him to have playoff success. I don't really care how he plays the rest of the regular season, because so much of his perceived value, and like, it's not quite right to call it the legend of Paolo Banchero, but like the appeal of him is that in the playoffs, he's better. Like he's more valuable. Like he's played 2 playoff series. He averaged 27 a game in one. He averaged 29.4 in the other, was more efficient than he generally is, did all the get to the line stuff, did all the tough shot making stuff, all these things that, at least with respect to the tough shot making, we don't love as a regular season proposition, but that in theory, like highlights his value in a playoff scenario, because those are the shots you got to make. Like you don't get the easy ones. You need someone that can be physically overpowering, that will take and make tough twos. And that's kind of his deal. And so far, his playoff effectiveness has just been greater than his regular season effectiveness. So for him, a bad playoffs then just sort of allows us to say, oh, well, he's not even that guy. We know the regular season questions, and we know the big picture questions about like, can he anchor a good offense? So far, no. But at least at the moment, prior to another playoff series loss, and if he has a bad performance, you can say like, yeah, but look what he can do in the games that really matter. He's better in those. What doesn't that count for something? So
he takes more threes and hits them at an astronomical clip. Explain that.
If he falls short, 44% last year
on almost
40%.
6 attempts per game. Yeah.
So like, and not really losing any of the free throw volume in the process. So if he doesn't give you that, then the questions just get louder about like, did we? I mean, they were always going to give him that extent. He's a number one pick. He's been productive. He had all this potential, but
He's
like,
good.
he's good. But then then the questions get louder about like, is he good enough to justify the position we have him in our like big picture plans like that? I can't really think of another player that has all that kind of riding on the next few months.
I thought maybe, but he's under contract for 2 more years. I did think maybe Karl Anthony Towns as just. I also thought, could one of the Wizards, Will Dawkins says that Trey, who has a player option, and Anthony Davis, who wants an extension, are going to play this season. Do they have? They certainly have something to prove, but that feels more like a next season thing to me, not a this season thing.
I mean, that's an interesting way to go about it, though. Like, what if either Davis or Young actually plays? How good would they have to play for us to not just say, yeah, but these games didn't mean anything? Like, it would have to be remarkable, and it would have to lead to wins, which the Wizards don't want. And I think those are interesting names to consider. I struggle. Like if Trey averaged 40 and 12, over down the stretch or something, we would I would just dismiss it. And I might be wrong to do that, but I feel like that would be the take on like I don't think anyone would be like, oh my God, he's back. Suddenly the Wizards are guaranteed a top 5 offense because Trey is Trey again. I think there'd be some like side eye at any level of production for him. What about Giannis could be another nominee for kind of the same reasons as when we discussed the Bucks.
I had Joel Embiid on my list too. I know he's already been paid, but it's sort of okay. It looks like he's playing better, but can he do it? We've seen him dominate in the playoffs, but can he do it for an entire playoff run? Be healthy, the whole shebang. The Sixers could be having VJ Edgecombe and Maxey insulated them against being the team with the most at stake. But Joel Embiid individually, I think he's been, even when he was bad this season, I thought he's done a great job of just like adapting or at least trying to where he hasn't made it the Joel Embiid show. He's tried to fit in alongside everybody. But if we go through the playoffs and he either doesn't look right or it's just not the same, even in, I don't want to say small bursts, but smaller spurts, they'll have questions. But it's also, he's got his money. He signed his extension. Good for, I don't know how much he could change I don't know that he could change any sort of narrative on himself, regardless of how good or bad he plays. It'll act as, I think, affirmation for one side of the fence versus the other. Oh, I knew he couldn't do it, or oh, we knew that he could do this.
I think that's a good one. What if the Hornets come out of the play-in and
win it all?
I guess they'd have to be 8th. And they see Detroit in a first-round series, who they played tough in the game where all the fighting happened, all the fisticuffs took place. And LaMelo shows that against this defense, I can get us to score at a good rate in the playoffs. I think his reputation changes a lot.
Ooh,
right? Like
that's a good one.
You're answering a lot of questions like in succession at like a high degree of difficulty. I would just say if they don't need to beat the Pistons, they don't need to upset the Pistons. But if they take them to 6 or like even 7, obviously, and the Hornets score at let's just say like their regular season clip, which would be a huge achievement, 1 in the playoffs, 2 against the Pistons. And LaMelo is like very good in orchestrating that. We would have very different offseason conversations about him than we've had for like the past 4 years, I think.
I honestly, he did not come to mind for me, which is shocking. That is a great pick.
Doesn't he always come to mind for you just in general?
Well, doesn't he? His is sort of more of the pendulum can only swing in one direction at this point, because I think people just believe that he won't show up in the playoffs or that he's not good. I feel like that's the default argument. And so anything he does is sort of gravy.
Well, right, because the Hornets, when they had that nine game run and the offense just keeps climbing, it's like, I feel like people are, I don't know, I'm straw manning here a little bit, but it's easy to be dismissive of that because they're still just like barely a play-in team. And this is just the regular season. Not a lot of teams are like getting up to play them yet. They're definitely not at that stage. But if you give a real, we're serious postseason team like the Pistons, or even if it's like Boston in a 2-7 potentially, I think you could really see not just like him recover, like getting back to how he was viewed a few years ago, but like even getting a level above that where it's like, no, he is like the player that we said Trae Young was in like 2021 or however, whatever comp you want to use. He's that guy now.
I think we could blow through him because we talked about the Cavs already, but Evan Mobley, just to harken back to the decision of you kind of need to prove that you can be the second best player on a championship contender in the playoffs. And I think he can be. And I think we've shown like just the level he's reached, but also you also need to kind of prove that, well, if the Cavs do pivot, you need to be part of, like, can you be the centerpiece of the post pivot? Because Darius Garland's not there anymore. And so it would only be you. And I could also make a case for like 3 different Hawks players. Is that weird? Jalen Johnson,
yeah.
The offense without Trae has been, even before he left, like slightly above league average. And is that enough to say that Jalen Johnson is the guy? But you have to look at the context of the personnel, which leads me to say, one, Jonathan Kuminga is there now. He has presumably a ton of stake. But also, Zachary Risache, like what is
Who?
he? Yeah, how important is he to them? So 3 ball falling at a higher clip over the past like month and whatever, but is this someone that they view as what? What do you think the Hawks view him as? Do they view him as the guy next to Jalen Johnson, or is that Dyson Daniels? Is that Onyeka Okongwu? Is it this year's draft pick from the Pelicans or Bucks?
That's where I was going. I think the good thing about Johnson is that like his contract is such that it's not a Banchero situation where it's like, well, we've like staked our claim as like, this is the guy. Johnson does not make so much that it's like, well, we can't have anyone come in over the top of him in the hierarchy. Like that pick, depending on how high it is, might get you that guy. But that makes your timeline weird because you're setting it back another couple years probably. And I don't know what the appetite is for that. Jason Tatum is another one where it's all kind of gravy, but like if he comes back and looks like Jason Tatum, I think it at least makes it so this next offseason we're talking about like who's going to beat Boston. Because like I think, and if he doesn't look quite the same, we might have that question anyway because we'll just assume he'll get all the way back. But that makes it a little harder to not just say who can beat Detroit. These are like lower down ballot nominees.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we've hit the big ones.
What's your next question pick?
I think we should do this for the West, starting with the team. So which West team has got the most at stake for the rest of this season? And we'll include the playoffs. To me, this is harder than the East.
Because the West is better. It feels like everything is so low stakes in the East.
If you
predetermined.
If you get quote unquote upset in the West playoffs, it's like, well, because that 6th seed was nasty and like might go to the conference finals. So we're not going to like, set the whole thing on fire. I think it's easiest for me to start with like who is not in consideration for this. It's not the Spurs. They're kind of Pistonsy in that like, okay, so if they disappoint in a certain way, they just go out and make a trade to address that. The core is obviously stupid young, no stakes there. The Lakers, nobody expects anything. Then you get into the play-in team. So Phoenix, Golden State, Portland, Clippers, no stakes there really. Like,
well, the Clippers might have some first-round picks that get scraped away, but
doesn't have anything to do with how they. Yeah, right. If you don't consider like actual games played and like what might happen from the league, sure. I don't know if this is the answer, but why isn't it the Thunder? Just because they are still they bleed. We've decided they bleed this year because they've had injuries and they've lost games and they're not going to win 77 out of 82. If they was that what we had, 77? Can I take a victory lap a little bit on saying they'd win 62 and that's like right at where they are pace wise?
That was one of my best bets too, and they might not clear it.
Well, my best bet was the Bulls over 34, and that's not looking so hot at the moment. But they finally
subscribe to HardwoodKnocks for all your NBA betting tips.
Yeah, do not follow. I don't know. The Thunder just feel like they're still the favorite. But they seem vulnerable or more vulnerable than they've been in the past. And like maybe some of the moves we thought might be coming financially with like Hartenstein or Dort or whoever else, things get fast tracked. They make an upgrade move if they don't. I don't know how far they'd have to go or how soon they'd have to bow out for that to change. I don't know. They jump out to me. I'm looking at 2 other candidates here. One of which I imagine you're going to mention.
My first thought for this, honestly, OKC on my radar, of course, I didn't even have them in consideration. I have the Minnesota Timberwolves. I just sort of think we know Anthony Edwards is that dude, but they've kind of exhausted all that they can do without, all right, well, we've burnt down a large chunk of the core around Anthony Edwards to really change it up. And the fact that the Giannis thing, I don't know how real that was, aside from, okay, they tried to pursue him, but you had 0 first-round picks to offer.
Right.
You've given up on the Rob Dillingham experiment. I think there's a level of commendability in not throwing good money after bad and investing more in him when it's clear it's not going to work out with you. That being said, that decision's been made. You add Ayo Dosunmu, you let Nickeil Alexander walk. If it doesn't, you've paid Julius Randle, you've paid Naz Reid, you've extended Rudy Gobert. If this doesn't work, you've gone to consecutive Western Conference Finals appearances, and so your margin for improvement is actually very slim, because in a vacuum, any playoff campaign that doesn't end in at least reaching the Western Conference Finals is technically an abject failure. Now, that progress isn't linear, I understand that, but if you get trucked in the second round or lose in the first round, which is a possibility, you've had some of the crunch time offense with the turnovers, not getting enough shots on those possessions, wanting to find that extra ball handler, not being able to do it. Do you look at moving anyone who's not Anthony Edwards? And let's go back to the Kevin Durant pursuit from them was real, like caps lock real. And so the fact that they've considered what felt like more realistic major changes already, coming off of 2 consecutive Western Conference Finals berths, what happens if you don't even make it back there this season?
I was tempted to kind of throw out the, like, what's the difference then between them and the Knicks? Because they feel similarly like, well, so what move are you going to make? That is the difference, is that as opposed to the Knicks, where it's like you try to trade Cat for like neutral value or to get off the money, the Wolves have, like, McDaniels would fetch a mint. Like, I do think even Rudy Gobert is someone, if you really want to just completely,
is it going to be 5-time defensive player of the year, Rudy Gobert, depending on how many games
win
he plays?
Like, and then you might be like, we still want a different identity. We want more offensive dynamism. So he's the guy we move. Or Randall obviously is always someone there, that shows up in trades. Like, I guess if you're talking stakes, the Wolves have a greater ability to, like, react than the Knicks do if things don't go the way they want them to. So they're not quite the same in that sense. I think that's a good pick. Should we talk about Denver? I mean, like, they're one where it's like, what would they really do?
Yeah.
Like, so what are the stakes? But I guess if, let's say Aaron Gordon's already in the midst of his second, like, major hamstring injury this year. This keeps happening. It's pretty popular and probably correct to say that, like, they can't win it if he's not healthy for a full playoff run. So do you start looking at, I mean, Peyton Watson's restricted free agency is coming up. Christian Brown is, like, I guess once he's not a poison pill contract, you might think about trying to turn him into something different. But I don't really, it's also not quite right to say, like, their window's closing as long as Jokic and Murray are there. But you could imagine them falling short, and then it's like, oh, I guess this was a 1 title team. And I guess, like, for Jokic, that feels like a huge disappointment to this point. So there would be a desire to change things. I just don't know what they can really do if they don't, meet expectations, whatever those are, which, by the way, like, I don't know what I expect of them at this point.
They're a good call out too, because I can't remember where the clip was from, but Grace J from the What's in a Game podcast had shared it, where there was talk about Denver trying to stay out of the tax next year, which they can't do that without absolutely annihilating their roster. And so I'm assuming that was overstated, or maybe it was misrepresented in what they were trying to explain. But at the bare minimum, depending on how this season ends, you're looking at Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, and Cam Johnson as, what are we doing here, folks? And I don't know how deep of a run they need to make to convince ownership to say, no, we're going to run this back, pay Peyton Watson, and we'll be in the second apron. I don't, like, would even a Western Conference Finals appearance convince them to do that?
I mean, if it were highly competitive and they maybe lost it because Gordon tweaked his hamstring again, like, then you could just be like, well, we're still a contender. But yeah, I don't know what level they need to get to. It's that they're in it. There's one other team that keeps catching my eyes. I'm looking at it, and I think we'd probably agree it's the Rockets, because
No, they've
if
got time. Kevin Durant's only 37, man. They didn't need to do
right,
anything at the trade deadline.
right.
They're good.
I'm just imagining the scenario where it's a specific one, so maybe this should just be a pivot to the player. But if Thompson just in a postseason setting, it doesn't have to be guarded, I think like everything about Houston changes. Like I think like then he goes from look at all the amazing shit this guy can do to look at the one thing he doesn't do well and how that like cripples his team in certain situations. Like we've seen that play out before, that type of narrative. It would be hugely disappointing if that's what happens, but we've seen enough signs of that exact thing during the season this year to where I expect any smart playoff team is going to make him be like a weak spot, like an exploitable thing in a series.
Yep.
And I just wonder what Houston does, what he does to combat that. And will that be sufficient to keep the narrative of, oh, maybe he's not like, he can't kind of be a core piece here. We certainly can't pay him like a core piece. And then you're into this whole, like, well, who will? Somebody will. Yeah. And, so he and they are an interesting one to keep an eye on.
Honestly, I find them more compelling than the Thunder as a pick because you can it's not just him. It's with Alperen Sengun, I'm trying to think of the last player to whom I thought was so much better defensively than his coach did, to where you see Ime Udoka not having Alperen Sengun, like playing weird offense-defense games with Alperen Sengun in crunch time when it's Alperen Sengun is not the best defender, but he is far from just like this turnstile. But he's got, Ime Udoka calls out everyone. So there's that element of, well, how do the Rockets feel? What does Alperen Sengun look like? How much do they trust him? Maybe an even bigger element would be, what if Reed Shepherd just doesn't look ready? Mm-hmm. And like for the moment, and we all know he'll be ready for the moment. This is a Reed Shepherd podcast. What if Jabari Smith Jr.'s wide open threes aren't falling? If it feels as if every non-Kevin Durant core piece on this team has something at stake in the playoffs of, if it doesn't go well for them, they just won't be part of the Rockets' long-term plan anymore.
Yeah, I think that's right, because we're past the Durant trade was the official, like we're past the, let's look at all these guys we got. Let's see like which combinations work. And, we don't really expect any kind of massive success, even though they were the 2 seed last year. But it's different now because you made the Durant trade. You didn't do anything at this deadline, which I don't know what to take. I guess I take from that you just didn't see value, but like there was an opportunity to get better.
You couldn't. I'm sorry. I've said this 80,000 times this podcast. I agree that they shouldn't have done anything nuclear, but you can just get some shooting on this roster. I don't want to hear about Fred VanVleet being out is a big deal. But I'm not saying go get your floor general of the future, 1, because he's already there. But 2, I'm not saying go get Kobe White's been the name that's come up a lot. And for the cost, it's, well, why couldn't you have figured something out there? But you don't, what I can't wrap my head around is you don't get to play like, well, Steven Adams is out for the rest of the year. That should not be such a huge inflection point in the year 2026.
Yeah.
And I also think even if it was, when you trade for a 37-year-old Kevin Durant, I know you extended him. You're not guaranteed, like, just the way age works. Kevin Durant's fantastic. He's one of the 15 best players in the game still. He's 37. That's not so I'm not saying they needed to make a huge move, but not to even add a shooter just to open up the floor for the rest of the regular season to see, hey, what does this look like? I was pretty disappointed that especially when Dorian Finney-Smith hasn't made a 3 since last season, basically.
Yeah, the more we talk about them, the more it does feel like maybe it's partly because like they are one because of like contract situations in a position like Tari Eason is another one. It's not just Amen Thompson, but like they're in a position where they have to make decisions, and the information they get in this postseason is going to inform those like pretty strongly, I would think. So that it's not just that like, all right, we're at that point, where prove it. It's like, no, they got to decide who to pay and how much. And they might really change how much they think certain guys are worth to them based on what happens the rest of the way.
Their pressure feels, I don't know what the word is, a little bit more passive than a team like the Timberwolves, where if the Rockets do something nuclear, you can, because of the information they get in the playoffs, it allows them to do other things where maybe they get better. You consolidated these players and picks into Giannis or just someone else who becomes available. Whereas the Wolves, it's what are they supposed to do? But the more we talk about the Rockets, there's more layers to it. But I just wonder if even if things don't go according to plan, they have more options than the Timberwolves do.
Yeah, and I think with the Timberwolves, I guess if the Timberwolves go out early, then maybe my opinion changes. But I have the thought about them that I kind of threw out there last year with the Knicks, and really any team that makes a conference finals is just like, it's really hard to be better than that. And like almost any move you make, barring like adding Kevin Durant to the 15 Warriors or whatever, is like, there's a pretty decent chance it'll make you worse. Like just because it's so hard to be better than the level of a team that reliably makes the conference finals. Like all you really know about the Wolves over the last couple of years is like, well, they weren't quite as good as the Thunder. It's like, all right, like show me the move that guarantees that will change, you know? But whereas the Rockets, the first round out, you know, they're at a point where it's like, yeah, there definitely are things you could do that can get you above that level. So the urgency to do them feels greater. The Wolves are just sort of like, well, shit, we're not like generationally good. Well, I don't know that we can be better than that. It's possible, I guess, but it's not easy or likely.
I'm going to lock in my pick with the Wolves. Who ends up being your pick?
I might have talked myself into the Rockets. I think just to be different, I'll say the Rockets. But the Wolves are a good one because they kind of need to do better than last year, and that's going to be really hard.
I'll do what you did and keep the connective tissue going and ask, which Western Conference player has the most at stake? I did not. Honestly, Amen Thompson was not on my brain, and you might have talked me into picking Amen Thompson.
Yeah, I mean, we talked plenty about him, so we should probably look elsewhere, but he's pretty easy pick. I mean, Şengün is right there too, I would say. Like, and so at least like, I don't know, maybe the like wildly diverging opinions on his defensive value will like reach some kind of consensus based on what happens in the playoffs, and that changes sort of how he's viewed. The fact that he's not on a max and is viewed as a value, like regardless of what you think about his defense, makes the stakes a little lower for him. But yeah, Thompson's a good pick. I'm struggling to think, like, you can't pick a Spur. Can you pick a Spur?
Darius Garland?
Well, how much is he going to play, and how fairly will be
stakes? Also fair. Yeah, that's a good call out.
Well, no, yeah, well, you know, I'll return the compliment. Good nomination, because how much he plays is actually going to factor into like how he's viewed going forward.
Who would you say for the Spurs? I like that. I had thought about it's one of their guards.
It's one of them. It could be any of Fox,
Devin
or
Vassell.
Castle, or Dylan Harper. I feel like we have a rough idea of what Devin Vassell is, and that's not a knock. It's just I think I get it. There's no scenario where Wemby has anything at stake, is there? Like, I guess if he flopped somehow, but I don't know what that even is.
If he doesn't, do you think people are gonna? Because he's not dealing with a chronic injury, but if we now go through yet another year where he wouldn't qualify for awards. Do you view that as more of an NBA problem, or does the discussion around Wemby then get, are we ever going to see him play in 65 plus games?
Well, both. But I like, as you're laying out like what the first few years of his career might look like, I'd say like Embiid rebounded pretty well from that. He won an MVP, but like
he also played in 71 as a rookie. So it's not,
Yeah. I think with Wemby, I don't know if we're ever getting past, like, if he plays 71 plus in like 4 years in a row, we just shut up about the injuries, I guess. But like, he feels like someone that, because there's not really anything else to be worried about, like that'll always be the durability will always be the thing.
He's such an anomaly, but it's just funny. Why is it just because he's so tall? Because Kevin Durant was a 7-footer who's just super spindly as well. And we didn't have the same Kevin Durant health concern until he tore his Achilles.
That's true. Maybe it's not like, maybe the concern doesn't come from like height relative to position. It's just raw height, you know?
Right.
Like anecdotally, everybody always says like, if over a certain height, like those guys never last. Like people cite Ralph Sampson and like Sabonis and like who else is even, I don't know. Nobody's like Sean Bradley and Manute Bol. Like those guys are very different like levels of players, but I don't know. Anecdotally, it does feel like there's something to like, there's some justification to being concerned about their health. I don't know why. I think if we choose a Spur, it's just like, it's one of the guards, and are they going to be good enough to look like the second best player on a championship team? Which is like we're ahead of schedule with that.
I think I also think, is it weird for me to not have, I would look at Castle or Fox because it feels like those would be, maybe a team would insist on Dylan Harper being included, but Dylan Harper to me is a rookie. And so if you're rendering a verdict on him after this, it's not on Dylan Harper specifically. You've just decided, and maybe it's like this with Steph Castle too. You've just decided we have a chance to get Giannis, or I don't know if they want someone else that ambles onto the trade block, and it's costing us Dylan Harper. Steph Castle, to where a lot of people had him in the fringe all-star. You're in love with Steph Castle too. His playoffs that'll be, and De'Aaron Fox as well. Those are the two guys because De'Aaron Fox could be the outgoing money in a trade for anyone who's big. And that's just easy to fit in. And then I think at this point, I remain more of a Dylan Harper. Maybe in the context of the Spurs, it shouldn't be Dylan Harper who I'm highest on, but Steph Castle has proven the most already. So I think he's the one that teams might insist on if you were trading the Spurs, if they're trying to get.
Interesting.
Like that's a different type of question. If I'm running an NBA front office, Dylan Harper's the guy I'm after. And some of that is he has a year extra left on his rookie scale. But I'm also, is this also just, are we overstating it then? Because doesn't that just feel purely a Giannis discussion? What's the other player that gets you to think about moving Dylan Harper or Steph Castle? Which by default, does that mean De'Aaron Fox is up for the most pressure?
Well, yeah, we're kind of like trying to get there. It's hard. The Spurs again are just like their runway feels, and it feels like they're going to be great forever. So it's like, how much urgency? They're not in the Pistons boat where it's like, this might be the best shot they have. Nobody thinks that about the Spurs. So
I have two nominations from the same team. Could you guess the team?
I don't think I can.
I'm going to say,
is it the Wolves? Are we going Wolves again? Okay.
We've talked about this team already, but I'm looking at Lou Dort and/or Case and Wallace, because you mentioned the Thunder. There are other ways that they could get their payroll under. I don't think Isaiah Hartenstein's under pressure. If his team option gets declined, someone will just pay him mid-level or more money.
Easily.
But Case and Wallace and Lou Dort are more entrenched, like into Oakland. Like Case and Wallace is extension eligible. Lou Dort has the team option of his own. They just traded for Jared McCain. Nikola Topic is back. You have AJ Mitchell. You have other perimeter, Jalen Williams, of course, other perimeter players. And you could say it's Aaron Wiggins or Isaiah Joe, but they just don't fit like the spirit of this exercise. There's going to be collateral damage at some point for the Thunder. Some of that collateral damage is going to be this offseason. Could it be one of these guys where they decide, oh, we're not going to extend Case and Wallace, and we're not going to let this. They typically have not let it, unless they know like they're going to, like they don't let this ride out into restricted free agency. And so are they going to render Case and Wallace might be my pick, just because everyone's identified Lou Dort as that might be a form of collateral damage. Maybe even some people have identified Alex Caruso as a possibility of that. Case and Wallace just being extension eligible, and I'm wondering how much would I pay him as someone running a team, and how much is that going to diverge from what the Thunder might be willing to pay, knowing how they've handled these situations in the past. He's kind of a sneaky candidate.
So then do you think, I mean, do you think that he needs to basically outplay Dort to sort of be the guy they choose when it comes time to make a decision on that roster spot? Because they're different players, but it's like what they're gonna ask them to, what the Thunder will ask them to do is pretty similar, right? Like you'll never be higher than the fourth option. You just got to guard, and you need to make open threes. I guess Dort can guard different players just because of his strength, but like, does Wallace have to be the better offensive contributor and show, like, does he just need to be better? Like, does he need to outplay
I was going to even say,
and then you let him walk if he doesn't?
It's not even just Dort, but if AJ Mitchell is getting minutes over him because he does a better job of running the offense, and you know what Dort will cost you at least through next season. You know what Alex Caruso is on the books for. You know what AJ Mitchell's on the books for. Case and Wallace is the mystery box there. And you know what Jared McCain's on the books for the next 2 years after this. Doesn't provide the same level of defensive value, but if he has the higher offensive ceiling, and that's like the Thunder aren't going to want for defense unless they get rid of all like Dort and Case and Wallace and Isaiah, then okay, we can have that discussion. It might be Case and Wallace is maybe the Thunder player under the most pressure. I don't know if I could lock him in. Your Amen Thompson shout out, that I'm really sold on that one, I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who else I'd even like throw up there.
Does LeBron have anything at stake with free agency coming up
for his legacy? No. What about, or do any Lakers warrant mention? Like it seems like Luka should have something at stake coming off of like getting thrown away last year by the team that I mean,
okay, let's say the Lakers lose
but
in the play-in or the first round. What does that Luka got his extent? I don't know what that.
Yeah,
people are still gonna. Oh, the timeline was always this is the summer they're gonna start making moves. Could it?
Yeah,
is Austin Reeves,
you would have that to fall back on. I wonder if like maybe he doesn't hold up physically again. You know, like he's got this nagging thing in a postseason series, and then it gets easier to kind of start the clock on like, is he ever gonna get like win anything, or is he just gonna go down as someone that, you know, like you can imagine that narrative developing if he has a bad playoffs, or he gets picked on defensively, or he looks out of shape, or what, like all the Luka stuff, which has mostly been kept at bay this year. But again, you're right. Like nobody expects the Lakers to do anything. So he'd have to be pretty disappointing individually.
I have a good one, but I don't know how fair it is.
Let's
we are 4 games into the 2025-2026 Scoot Henderson experience in Portland as we record this. He's going to be extension eligible too. I've seen bits of 3 of his games. I've been impressed with some of the passing that I've seen. The turnovers have been out of control, and I don't know how to feel. I still don't know how to feel about him as a scorer. His final 2 games heading into the All-Star break, kind of self-contained, only taking under 10 shots a game, not playing a ton of minutes. He's on a minutes cap. Seems to be around like 20 right now. But when you look at their offense, they've treaded water when Denny Avdia is on the court. I think if you want to sit here and say we're fine with Denny Avdia being the driver of our offense as a contender, I still think there's room for debate there. We have to see it in the playoffs, which are probably, I mean, maybe they come out of the play-in. Who knows? That would be another guy that'd be interesting to see. But Scoot, like, for what the Blazers need, he's supposed to be the guy. So even if you think Denny Avdia is going to stay above him or should be above him, if I knew they were going to go to the playoffs, I might just say Shaedon Sharpe because he's had some crazy shot making, but he's already got his extension. Scoot, to me, is you have just kind of some injuries now in the rear view, missed a ton of this season. You've never really, he improved last year, but it was never Scoot's averaging 25 and 5 on shooting 55% from 2 and 40% from 3 really for this protracted stretch. He's got but what do you give him? I had this conversation with Mort the other day. Shaedon Sharpe, I forgot how cheap his extension was. Does Scoot get the equivalent of that? This, like, are you put as what you've seen so far from the Blazers? Are you putting that on the table for Scoot?
I don't think you can. I think in a weird way, well, not in a weird way, in like a very normal way, the sort of gradual, like diminishing expectations for Scoot over this 2+ years of his career, brought about by injuries and really brought about by like, this guy has got a ways to go, at least early on, makes it so like, I don't even think anyone expects him to get paid like certainly not a high end starter, or, you know, what's his pushback going to be? Like, he can't point to anything other than draft pedigree to say, and Shaedon Sharpe could kind of point to some of that. And
he's making between 12 and 13% of the salary cap. And it was 4 for 90, which is between 12 and 13% of the salary cap. I think because of Scoot's passing, you could talk yourself into 4 for 100, but can you even talk yourself like into, you know what, like the idea of Scoot, I still, well, maybe not because of Sharpe's physics. I don't know this. And you know what? Scoot's my Western Conference pick. This is it for him. It's not, and maybe it's not because you could just go into next season and then he has restricted free agency coming.
That's what I was going to say.
There's a lot of noise then there too. Damian Lillard's coming back because Drew Holiday's still on the team. How does that dynamic work with Denny Avdia? The runway is clearer for him right now just by virtue of Damian Lillard not being healthy. The Damian Lillard shadow, even if his role is going to change, that's going to eclipse a lot of stuff. And so if I'm Scoot, this closing kick of the season is pretty big for determining not just what type of player he is, but his overall future in Portland, I think.
To me, there's almost nothing he could do that would make the Blazers giving him an extension a responsible decision.
Oh,
I think like,
well, what if he closes the season strong and signs the Shaedon Sharpe deal?
Okay, then that would be a responsible number probably. Like, but I think for him, I mean, he wasn't like he was like expected to be really good this year until the hamstring happened. And then it's like, so if you're the Blazers, how do you go into this offseason having any idea, regardless of what he does, of like what to expect next year? I don't know. Maybe that's unfair, but part of it is too, restricted free agency is like such a team friendly thing now, more so than ever, where it's like, yeah, he might be mad, but like you still hold all the power, right? Like, and
that'll be a great,
cold calculated way to treat this is like, it's great if he looks awesome. If I'm Portland, I'm still just like, there's no, based on the last 3 years, there's just no way I can give you extension money right now. I need a full season. Like, I just got to see it.
Does that lower the stakes then of the rest of this year for him, or does it heighten him in the sense that your team doesn't believe in you? You don't want to lower that belief even further.
Yeah, these got stakes going the other way, where if he's just bad.
And by the way, they're going to play meaningful games. This team is going to be in the play-in. Just so, like, what if you get what if you get into the playoffs and he looks awful?
Then that's very bad for him. So yeah, there is a bit at stake for him. What if he gets into the playoffs
and he looks great? You're not going to consider it. Like, the playoffs are, I know it's a small sample, but it got Paolo and Carroll max contract. Number,
it would be a fun thought exercise to just say, like, you decide today, does Scoot get the Shaden Sharp numbers or not? Like what Portland would say, or what Blazers fans would say. Be very curious as to the answer.
I'd be curious to know that. I want you to file this away, not to answer it now, but when we do, we'll eventually do off-season questions. Does a restricted free agent get an offer sheet from an outside team this year? Because we haven't seen one in a few seasons since Paul Reed. Don't answer it now. We have to file that away, but I think that'll be an interesting discussion.
Yes, I agree. I'm already thinking of possibilities there.
I'm locking in Scoot as my pick. I think you're going with Amen Thompson.
I got to. Yeah, I got to stick with him on that one.
The answer could be Reed Shepherd, but I'm not. I just have so much faith in him. It's going to be fine. You're up. What's your now? We're leaving the stakes. The stakes bubble.
Now we're in the like potpourri section here. So I went ahead and highlighted this one, and maybe it'll be quick. But I'm kind of curious, like, what just to discuss this with you, because we haven't talked about it. Will the Bucks shut Giannis down and not let him play, even if he gets over this calf injury, comes back and says, guys, I only do it one way, and I'm going to come back and play really hard, and we're going to try to win games because I'm Giannis and my competitive integrity is cannot be contained. So you're the Bucks. I'm Giannis. I'm healthy. I want to play. And let's say you've lost God knows how many games in a row, or like 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. You're really making inroads to improving your lottery position. What do you tell him?
You have to shut him down. And so my justification here would be, if you didn't straighten this out with him before the trade deadline, because there's no way he said he wanted to stay in Milwaukee thinking that the Bucks have a chance of winning a title this season. There's none. I'm all for self-belief in professional athletes, but look, they're plus 5.4 per 100 possessions with him on the court. That's great. The defense has still been shaky overall. Ryan Rollins, great story. AJ Green, great story. But like, you're a team that is so dependent on Kevin Porter Jr. and/or Cam Thomas in any way, shape, or form, I just can't take seriously as a contender. And I don't think Giannis would either. So there has to be an agreement in place that, no, we're going to shut you down. And especially if you're still outside the play-in organically. And the other thing too is he's already been disqualified from the NBA awards ballot. So you're not messing with that. He's not making an all NBA team this year. What does he miss? 23 games so far, right? He crossed that, I believe. Should double check that.
I think he's played 30, because I know they're 15 and 15 with him.
Oh yeah, then they're definitely then he's for sure not eligible. So what are you give Giannis up? He's gotten injured so much with these calf strains. Why risk having another one? I think they will, and they should. I guess if they go on a maybe really post All-Star break, if they just open up with a 5 or 7 game winning streak, and now you're just firmly in the play-in. I just look at the teams in front of them. The Bulls are the only one that are trying to lose, I would think. Are the Hawks or the Hornets or the Heat or the Magic going to be worse than the Bucks?
No.
Moving forward?
No. The answer is simple. You can't take minutes away from Ousmane Dieng. That's, as the Bucks are reoriented around a new star and you can't mess with it. I agree with you that like it's a hard no, buddy. Like you can't come back. Whether we intend to keep you or trade you, another calf injury in meaningless games is like insanity. We can't have that happen. Do you think his profession that he intended to come back and play was like performative and designed to get the Bucks to trade him? Like, was that part of the, like, I'm not asking to be traded, but just so you know, I'm going to come back and fuck up your plans to be bad if you don't trade me. Do you read it as that a little bit now? Or is it just, he really is sincere about like, cause there's a way to view Giannis as totally sincere and like, that's way to go, man. Or as like, actually like he's really manipulating the Bucks in a lot of ways and he's just not doing it super overtly.
I honestly don't know anymore. I can't. It's cool that it seems like he really wants to win in Milwaukee again. I fully believe that. I want to know if he believes that it's possible. I still just have skepticism there. And I think the only vision you could have sold him on is we have 3 first-round picks to trade this summer. And so I think that inherently then lowers the stakes of this season, and he needs to understand that. I get that he wants to play and he's wired differently, but if he finishes the season playing in most of the games and they're going for it and they finish 11th or to get into the play-in, I think your point is then validated to where it's just so now you've lowered the value of this pick that's coming in. I presume you sold him on, we're going to have this pick, 2 more picks to trade. But I'm also not in favor of if he's healthy, don't play him. But this is someone who's dealt with enough injuries, including during the playoffs, to where I would say, hey, year off, not the worst idea.
That's the thing with him specifically, given his age, given the recurring leg stuff. It's like it wouldn't be a Jaren Jackson Jr. like, well, let's have this surgery, shall we, for the Jazz? It's very much like, no, we're concerned about this, and whether we want to keep you or not, like you just need to be healthy. Like this is a real concern. So yeah, I think we've both kind of said it, but like if he is healthy enough to play, you got to figure out a way to just not let that happen because it doesn't serve anybody.
I'm going to go with this question, and this is where I'll get off my Pistons take, I think. Which contender will regret not making a bigger trade more? Grant, the Pistons, the Rockets, or the Spurs? Notably, both the Rockets and the Spurs did jack shit. The Pistons traded Jaden Ivey. They have that pick swap with Minnesota, and they also got Kevin Huerter.
I mean, do you want to get your Pistons take off? Because the thing is, I'm going to agree with you. So I would like to cede the floor to you on why it actually is the Pistons. I love this take.
I think the ceiling on what the Spurs and the Rockets could have done is higher because of some of their pick equity, where you look at, okay, Spurs picks aren't valuable. Look at some of the teams they can swap with in certain years. Plus you have, not that they're expendable, but because you have Fox, Harper, and Castle, you could envision trading one of them, where the Pistons, it's, all right, you can't trade Duren. Definitely not trading Cade. Could you trade one of Asar and Ron Holland? And then the Rockets just have extra picks, and they kind of have young core members to spare. With the Pistons, I believe that this season is going to be their best chance of winning a title with this core. And that's not because I doubt that the Pistons are going to be able to stay good for a while. I just think the East is going to be harder. And it also speaks to a Western Conference, to me, that while there are a bunch of teams that I could envision coming out of it, or I could say they would be the second best team in the East, free and clear, that's kind of part of the point. There's vulnerabilities. Look at the inconsistency of Minnesota. Look at the health of Denver right now. Look at the health and some of the inconsistencies from OKC, including J-Dub. Like finishing, when J-Dub looked like J-Dub and then aggravates the hamstring injury right before the All-Star break, are the Thunder they're not cooked, but what is going on here?
Yeah.
So it's not just about the East. It's that I could see next year the Rockets, the Spurs, and or the Thunder are all just going to be better. And this says nothing of the Lakers with cap space in a summer when only 2 other teams are going to have cap space, and one of them is the Bulls. So I look at this Pistons core and I say, it's not about doubting their viability long-term. It's the circumstances. You're going to be in an East with a healthier Celtics, a healthier Pacers team that after getting Zubats, even if you don't believe in their title window being that long, the next 2 to 3 years are going to be difficult. And what you could have done as the Pistons, if you could have added a Michael Porter Jr. and it cost you 2 first-round picks, if you could have added a Trey Murphy, I don't know what the pick equity would have been there, someone better than Kevin Huerter, this you easily could have been named as not just the Eastern Conference favorite, which you probably should be right now, but because you're just so head and shoulders above everybody else. But where do you rank in the overall championship picture? Their offense, I do not trust it in a playoff context. I don't think that there is going to be enough proven shooting. Some of their finishing around the rim has been all over the place. And the things that you do to get you by in the regular season, we've seen a lot of it with, remember those Grizzlies teams, even like the current sort of iteration of the Rockets, some previous Knicks teams, or even some of the ways that the Knicks still play offense. Pistons, super talented. Cade Cunningham is great. The season that Jalen Duren having is insane. They could get better between they will get better between this season and next. Their championship odds are just going to go down. And so I don't want to be prisoner of the moment, but in today's NBA, I feel like you almost have to be with your championship windows where they don't have just a 5% chance of winning a title. By virtue of being the Eastern Conference favorite, it's more like a 25% chance of winning the title. And to me, you should have been obligated to not throw 4 first-round picks on the table and do something stupid to get Larry Markkinen or Trey Murphy short circuit your future. But it needed to be more than look at this pick swap and Kevin Huerter.
So I'm glad you made the point that you're not saying, because this is a key distinction, you're not saying the Pistons won't ever be better than this. Because I think we agree, like, no, they're young enough that they probably will be better than this. It's just that their chance to use the talent they have to win a title won't be better because of the circumstances. I think that's interesting. I think that's right. I think it's nuanced. A couple of things to add. I always think I never get on board with the logic of, to use a recent example or a contemporary example, well, the Thunder are so good. Like, what's the point of us making this, they're too good for, like, we can't compete with them. Like, let's wait it out, or let's keep the powder dry, or whatever. Like, cause that was going around a little bit early in the season, like, or that line of thinking. I don't agree with that. I think that makes more sense than the reverse of it, which is the situation the Pistons are in, which is that, like, look at, like, Indiana's down. The Cavs are very questionable. The Celtics are kind of like, well, look at us here. Who would have thunk? Like, this is the reverse situation where it's like, we have an opportunity to just capitalize on weakness around us. We're not worried about, like, matching a strength of another team, or, like, being dissuaded from doing something because we're just going to run into Team X. It's the opposite. It's like, nobody's in our way. Like, now is when we try to get even better, because this is a little, it's not a window in the conventional sense we use it, but it's like, we've got this little crack we could squeeze through right now. Maybe we don't think we're as ready as we may be later, but it's like, there's no guarantee that that you will be better. We think they'll be, like, all that stuff. Like, this is when you go for it. And I think a good, like, point of reference is the trade that the Pacers made. The Pacers gave up 2 first-round picks for a guy that, like, they just want next year in Zubats. Like, so you're telling me that a team that's going to be struggling to win 20 games gives up 2 firsts that will not help it at all this year, and the Pistons won't do that? And we're not, and, like, Zubats is a good player, but, like, maybe MPJ relative to, like, what he could provide this specific team matters at least as much, or is at least as valuable to the Pistons as Zubats will be to the 26-27 Pacers. So the fact that the Pacers go do that and the Pistons don't do something similar is just, like, it's not, like, maddening, but it is frustrating, because it's like, you guys are here. The Pacers aren't here right now. They're hoping to get back, and they're preparing as if they will. It's not a guarantee. The Pistons you're right there. Like, just do to call it an over the top move is even, like, overstating it, because we're not saying go trade for a superstar. Just go get the guy that upgrades a clear position of need and hope that's enough to beat a weak field. Like, yeah, the Pistons are the only answer to this. There are other teams we could talk about, but it's like, they're just the runaway winner.
I think even when we recorded our post-trade deadline pod, I did make the case of the Pistons could view themselves as the Thunder wanting to go through another playoff round, but they got it last year. The more I munched on it, was just that Knicks series was there for the taking, and I think it's okay that they didn't go out and do something bonkers over the offseason. What were the opportunities available to them? I actually did think Karis LeVert was going to be way better for them than he has been. But like, I just can't get over to your point about the Thunder. I don't know if I would respect it. I would understand that logic more if you're in the West. So much of winning the title is getting to the finals, and it's so there for the taking in the East that I don't know. I'm sure they were aggressive and looked at things, but I'd be curious. People said Michael Porter Jr. wasn't available. I have no doubt that Michael Porter Jr. was available. Were the Nets asking for 3 first-round picks and they were refusing to move him for less? I understand why the Pistons don't do that. It needed to be something bigger than Kevin Huerter.
Right,
though.
It's a low bar.
They're 19th in half-court offense, and they're a so-so 13th in first chance offense. Your defense is elite. That might get it done. Not even just through the first, but to get you out of the East. Sure. I would not pick them to beat the Thunder. I wouldn't pick them to beat the Nuggets. I wouldn't pick them to beat. I might not even pick them to beat the Rockets or the Timberwolves at this point. Like, there's just something like the Rockets half-court offense has a Kevin Durant go nuclear. Maybe Fred VanVleet is coming back at that point. The Timberwolves have Anthony Edwards, and now Ayo Dosunmu was there, but mostly Anthony Edwards and then even a Julius Randle. They have one elite half-court creator, with all due respect to Jenkins. It's Cade Cunningham. And the way that defenses defend him and also the way that he plays, like, it takes a toll for him to play as physical as he does, and that's going to make them, to me, easier to defend. Now, Jalen Duren kind of expanding his bag, and just they do have good complementary pieces around them. And Tobias Harris has delivered some pretty big moments on the ball too. That's not enough, man. So this Piston season is so great, and I feel like I'm poo-pooing on it now. But to me, it's just they're an excellent team, and they are so excellent, and their shot at winning it all this season is so real. I would have liked to have just seen them do more at the trade deadline, and I think in hindsight, it might not be this season. Even if they I think in the moment, I wonder what it would take for them to regret it. But if we jump ahead like 2 or 3 years, this feels as if it could be one of those inflection points of, what if Detroit had done something during the 25-26 season, like made an upgrade trade?
Right. Yeah, you don't want to be that team that's like that will use as a point of comparison anytime in the future a really good team does not make a move. Like that's in the cards at the moment if the Pistons flame out. And it's for the reasons that right now you would expect, which is to say they just don't have the shooting or half-court offense to get it done. Let's see. Is it my turn? Because I have one that's caught my eye. There's this LeBron guy, and he plays for the Lakers at the moment, and he's going to be a free agent. And nobody's quite sure where he's going to play next year or if he's going to play at all. Is this going to be the last season LeBron plays with the Lakers?
Yes.
We have to serve the market. Asked and answered. Thank you.
I just would,
for the record.
I would be shocked if he's back with the Lakers, the way that everything is unfolded. I'm assuming he'll go back to Cleveland, and that'll be his swan song. And I guess he'll go back for the minimum, or will they have access? Maybe they could access the mini MLE. I would prefer to see him go somewhere where I think he has the most realistic chance of winning a title, but I don't think he's going to be, because if he's back with the Lakers, it's because he's done what he'll do with the Cavs, except it's for the Lakers. And I don't think there's that nostalgic equity there. And then also the reporting that came out in that was the Baxter Holmes piece, right? About how Jeannie Buss felt like he was getting too much credit. There's just no, there was a bunch of other things in there. There was enough smoke for there to be a fire, and I don't think there's coming back from that. And even if there was, this almost just feels just the way last season unfolded. No extension offer on the table. You've heard nothing about, well, they just wanted to prioritize flexibility, and he's going to take a pay cut so they could do these. No. You haven't heard any of that. And we've heard about him taking a pay cut to fit in Jonas Valanciunas in previous off seasons, but nothing about he'll take a pay cut to get the Lakers other big names. I just think he's gone. I would put the odds at 90% that he's on a different team next year.
I don't know what I put the odds at, but I think the way I was looking at it is just reverse it and say what that has happened in the last year points to LeBron or the Lakers wanting this to continue. Like everything from all I'm just repackaging what you said. It's like, what's the sign that he wants to stay there or that they want him to stay there? Really, the they want him to stay there is even harder to come up with evidence, because like he's got business interests, his family's settled there. Like, there's plenty of reasons you could come up with for him to want to be there. You could maybe even he could convince himself that like being second fiddle to Luka, especially if we keep Austin Reeves, we're still going to draw free agent. Like he could talk himself into like, this is actually a very good situation for me lifestyle wise and like competitive from a competitive perspective. But the Lakers are just like, no extension. We just traded for Luka. We're going to, I mean, I don't know what to make of like how much control they had over the home stuff coming, the Genie Bus stuff coming out. But like, there just isn't anything that suggests they want him there. Like, because they could have contractually made that clear. They could just be messaging that. They could be, doing some kind of PR push to like, I don't know, get fans to be like one more in LA or what. There's all those things that could be happening that aren't. So like, it's pretty clear that this is already over. And honestly, like I want for it to be, because it's way more interesting to me if the Lakers go do their own thing with Luka post LeBron and he goes to Cleveland. Just like that's way more fun, especially because like Cleveland in the East.
What is James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, LeBron James, Evan Mobley, and Jared
Well,
Allen?
in my imagination, James Harden isn't there for some reason, but we'll see.
So is LeBron going to go play a season with the Warriors and then go back to Cleveland?
Well, he's got some options. We're going to do a stat padding on this pretty soon, and I have a wild card LeBron destination that I really like. But Cleveland is like, that's just, well, you gotta wonder how much, which way does Harden being there cut for him? Like, is that an incentive, or is that like, I would prefer not to sign up for this? You would assume it'd be helpful because all the vets like each other.
Yeah, it's Darius Garland do LeBron and him have a relationship when he's 26 years old, 15 years younger than LeBron?
Right. Yeah. No.
Here's the better question: does Bronny go with him?
No. He'll stay, and I mean, I don't know if he'll be in the NBA. Actually, I just don't. I don't think Bronny would want to do that. I think he might view this as like, all right, time to cut the cord a little bit.
Yeah. Here's an interesting question for you, Grant, and I have a list in our doc. How many first-time All-NBA players will we get? And I'm asking this, I mean, there's been standout guys who will make their first All-NBA team, but I'm also thinking of, we know Giannis isn't eligible. Jokic, I think, can miss one more game.
Mm-hmm. So he's not going to do it.
Right. LeBron, I don't think he would have made it based off how he's playing, but he's ineligible. Steph is kind of on the fence, too. Does he have 6 absences left? And Wemby, who would be an option for first-team All-NBA, he can only miss a couple more games. Lauri Markkanen's already been eliminated. Jalen Williams has already been eliminated. Kawhi's on the fence, even though he would be a lock. And the other variable in this, we were talking about the Thunder before, the SGA injury. I'm assuming they were being overly precautious, but what if all of a sudden he winds up missing time?
The wording on that one, too, is reevaluated after the All-Star break. That's always a flag, right? Of just like, okay, so it might be 2 to 4 weeks after that. We don't know.
So I have a list, and let's see who would be the locks. I think the locks, if he's eligible, but he's not a lock. So Victor Wembanyama and Tyrese Maxey are my stone cold first-time All-NBA locks.
Mm-hmm. I think you go ahead. I was going to say you go All-Stars next. Like that, you just have to start picking from that group.
Right, and so we'll go through them rapid fire. Denny Avdia, like, are any of these names worth a lock to you?
Oh, a lock? I mean, it's so hard. Like, let's assume no Jokic, no basically anybody that you even casually mentioned, like no Steph, no Kawhi, no J-Dub. SGA is a tough one. What's he at? We need to dial that one in. What's he at right now?
Well, there's also, I think, and we're probably going about this the wrong way. So, like, I'll just rattle off the list of names to see. I think I have 15. There's Wemby, Maxey, Denny Avdia, Chet Holmgren, Jamal Murray, Scotty Barnes, Jalen Duren, Michael Porter Jr., Alperen Şengün, Amen Thompson, Brandon Ingram. I have 2 rookies. This is just deep cuts. Con Knipple and Cooper Flagg, Jalen Johnson, and Bam Adebayo. Our baseline is 2. Because even if Wemby doesn't qualify, we're just going to get 2 first-time All-NBA players at least. Based off that pool and knowing what we do about the games missed for other players, because statistically speaking, Jokic, Steph, Wemby, and who's the other one who's super? Kawhi. At least one of them's not going to qualify, and I'd be willing to even wager maybe 2 at least. Let's set the over-under at 2.5. First-time All-NBA players. Is that even too low?
That's a pretty easy over for me if it's 2.5. If you're gonna go like 4.5, I think then we have the conversation because it's like I think Avdia, I think he's probably there. I think
Same.
Chet probably there.
Yep.
I do think it's interesting that it's partly just because what's happened with Jada injury wise, but like I think we're not that far from him collectively just being regarded as the second best Thunder player at this point. Just I think we
and
maybe
we've started each of the previous 2 seasons asking that question, only for it to kind of just like fizzle
but now
out.
It's
now
like,
it's
how do you conclude otherwise with the thing is you could say like, well, once he's healthy, it's just different, but J-Dub hasn't been healthy because of the wrist surgery and all that stuff. So I think those are pretty comfortably in. I don't know how you talk yourself out of Murray the way he's played this year.
That's like, 5 though.
So we're over 4.5. We got to knock somebody else out. Do we knock Shea out? So he's missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 so far, 7. So he's topping out at 75. He can miss quite a bit actually down the stretch.
He'll get there. And I'm just going to settle in it. I'm going to take the under of 4.5.
You're on 4. I'm going to go over 4. And say 5 just to keep it because that's more interesting. Like, because there are worthy guys.
That's a lot,
right? Like,
though, right?
You get, I mean, like, if Avdia and Chet and Murray were on an all NBA team, you wouldn't like look back in 3 years and be like, that is insane. It wouldn't be like, who's the example of like that guy? Like Julius Randle's got a couple of those where you're just like, really? I wouldn't feel the same way about looking back at those guys. So I guess maybe that's just me already like pre-rationalizing that it's not weird at all that Denny Avdia is an all NBA player.
Right. I think Denny Avdia would be the name historically that winds up standing out.
Yeah, probably. I mean, you get down past just as the list we're looking at that the viewers can't see. I think Scotty Barnes is the one below Jamal Murray that like, all right, I could see it. And then Jalen Duren would be, I mean, boy, is he getting paid.
If there were positions still, that would have
positions, that would be even, first of all, good thing there aren't, because then that's how you get the really wild outcomes. You get down to the MPJ, Şengün, Ingram range, and then it's like something's the rules are dumb. This is bad. We don't like this.
All right, so you're taking over 4.5. I'm taking under 4.5. You're taking over 4.5 first time All NBA players. I want to hear from people how many first time All NBA players they think we're gonna get.
All right, is it my turn here?
Yeah.
I kind of want to. I don't want to overlap too much. Let's do this quickly, maybe, because this is just like a gut feeling thing. Which should be contender is most likely to disappoint us? This is also kind of a personal thing because it prices in that you expect something maybe more out of a team than you're going to get. I don't have a ready answer. Well, no, that's too galaxy brain.
What were you going to say? The Thunder?
Yeah. But they're not a should be contender. It's how do you qualify a should be contender?
Are they supposed to win at least a playoff series? Would it be a disappointment if their season ended without a playoff series victory?
Then it has to be Cleveland, doesn't it?
But are they most likely you think they're going to lose I don't think they're going to lose in the first round.
God, it's so easy to imagine that, though.
And I'm not including, I'd like the Magic, if we answered this question maybe at the start of the season before we saw what they looked like, I wouldn't be, the expectations need to be adjusted. It's disappointing this is where they're at, but if they lose in the first round, is it a disappointment? No, that's just following the natural order of how this season has unfolded, it feels like.
It's much harder to pick a team from the West, though, right? Because like I just gravitated a little bit as I'm looking at the standings towards the Rockets, but it's like, so if they lose the 4-5 to Minnesota, is that disappointing? Like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of the.
Can I just give you what I think is not the only answer, but should be the answer?
Please.
It's the Knicks.
Well, does anybody?
So
what do you expect from the Knicks?
One, they were the most popular pick to come out of the Eastern Conference this season. I picked the Cavs, but they were the most popular pick to come out of the Eastern Conference this season. Even through their post-NBA Cup haze, they've rebounded from it a little bit. They're still just in contention for a top 2 record. The team that's in first place is a team they beat last year. Well, give the Pistons all the credit in the world while sort of actively self-sabotaging themselves at points. But you're a team that was supposed to come in and be the Eastern Conference favorite, and you haven't lost that sheen just yet, and you look around, okay, Boston's better than expected, but the Tatum element not being there. You're still losing games to the Pacers at Madison Square Garden, but Tyrese Halliburton's not coming back, and they're not making the playoffs. I don't think Boston, let's look at it this way. I don't think Boston is going to lose to the Raptors or the Sixers, if that's who they play in the first round. I don't think the Pistons are going to lose to the Magic, the Heat, the Hornets, or the Hawks, if that's who they play in the first round. Do the Knicks end up, I could see the Knicks losing. That's the amount of faith I have in New York just reaching a certain level. And this is bonkers to say because I was looking the other day. They actually have, and my concerns are mostly on defense with them. They have a top 7 defense against top 10 offenses, which is actually pretty impressive. But the concerns we have about the Pistons offense, it's so different with New York, but they still don't have a number 2 option, a real one. That's not Mikal Bridges. Karl-Anthony Towns is all over the place. Jose Alvarado isn't coming in to do that. I don't want OG Anunoby handling the ball more than he has to. Their second best passer is in the rotation or regular rotation is Josh Hart. Okay, cool, fine. They're signing Jeremy Sohan. We'll see what experimentation looks like, but they're never actually going to be 5 out, or when they are going to be 5 out, it's coming at a very steep opportunity cost defensively. Because I'm a big proponent of, if Deuce McBride is going to be healthy, him plus the starters instead of him plus the core 4 starters of Bridges, Anunoby, Towns, and Brunson. That lineup can really kill it offensively. It's probably not going to be that good defensively. We just haven't seen it enough. I just think there's more variance in their outcomes. And also, if Boston does lose in the first round, how big of a disappointment is that actually? No, yeah. So to me, the answer is the Knicks. And a lot of it's because of what you said about the West. Yeah, it'd be disappointing if Houston bows out in the first round, or if Minnesota does, or the Spurs do, but the West is so good, man. If the Knicks lose to whatever this version of if they lose to a play-in team, which I don't, if they play the Magic, I'm not ruling out them losing in a 7-game series.
Oh, I would rule that if that would be a massive disappointment to me. But I take your point. I think I do agree that it's the Knicks. I was working on something the other day, and the Knicks have a higher point differential and are on pace to win more games this year than last year. And yet it's just what a catastrophe to this team. I think the problem really is preseason expectations were too high. They're a little better on balance, and that just doesn't square with what people thought was going to happen. Is that an oversimplification?
No.
I'm saying that as someone that picked them to win 53 games.
People
this year
overestimated the bump they were going to get, or at least the immediate bump, because I actually do think they're clearly more flexible than they were under Tom Thibodeau. And I think Jeremy Sohan signing with them, I don't think he's going to be a huge part of their rotation, but is proof that this team does have more change-ups in its arsenal because they played Mo Diawara. They gave Tyler Kolek more minutes. Jeremy Sohan had 10 suitors, according to Shams. You're not going to the Knicks if you think they're just going to bury you on the bench. There are there had to be at least 1 or 2 other teams that would have promised him X amount of minutes. So I do think they're better equipped overall, but their inherent problem, which I think that people underestimated, is that the ceiling, Tom Thibodeau might have been a ceiling, but the roster to me is also a ceiling.
I was just going to say, we spent a lot of time leading into this season talking about that exact, which is it kind of topic. Yes. Mike Brown, maybe he's a better coach. Maybe he's not. He'll be different. And maybe that amounts to better in some way. But ultimately it is the roster that just it's got limitations. It's got these unsolvable weird fits, a lot of which have to do with Towns, a lot of which have to do with wing depth. The fact that I could immediately talk myself into oh, that's going to matter. Someone like Sohan that gets thrown away by his team with that was a high first rounder not long ago, that just the fact that immediately was I could absolutely see how he would matter on that team. That just illustrates the roster has been the issue all along, and that didn't really change.
The fact that you're so tightly tethered to the fate of Landry Shamit's shoulder, which kudos to the way he navigates screens is he's asking to have his shoulder dislocated every single game. So kudos to him for still playing like that. But beholden to Mitchell Robinson's ankles, it's just, so I think I'm not saying they even will, because I do think some of it's, but I don't think this season has been a disaster. That stretch was disastrous. There was something that felt rotten in that locker room. We said it. But I'm looking at the contenders that have the highest ceiling, but like there's the variance of the lowest floor. I think it might be them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. Because I just can't pick a West team. I don't think so. I don't know where else to go there.
Can we do two more before we get into stat padding? And one of them being
Sure.
the inverse of this question. Which under the radar team, Grant, do you think could shock us all in the playoffs? And if it's not the answer that I have, I'm going to dismiss it and say that you're wrong.
Oh, well, I want to know your answer then. I'll tell you that I'm going to pick a West team just because, like, I don't know, the under the radar nature of it. Okay. I got one. What about Phoenix coming out of the play-in and beating, it's going to be the Spurs, I guess, in the first round. I can imagine that just the Spurs aren't quite ready. The Suns just somehow get like the high energy, like pressure, ball movement, like offense and defense combo to actually work in the playoffs. They got nothing to lose. Dylan Brooks causes several fights.
Is he suspended
somehow.
though? Is he eligible?
Well, no, yes, but he does it while also getting Wemby suspended. I could see that. Like he goes into the series with his only goal is like just double text all day, baby. And just it balances out. That would be a fun pick. I want the Spurs to be great immediately, but the Suns are just kind of like mean enough and enough of an irritant that I could see it.
They're a team that even if you played with Spurs, Nuggets, Thunder, whatever, and you won that series 4-0, you're still going to feel that series. They're one of those teams.
Yeah.
My pick is the Charlotte Hornets, the team that is in the top 5 of offense and defense since Thanksgiving. Man, you have to believe in their defense to think that they'll make a ruckus in the Eastern Conference. I believe in it a little bit more than most. Like, Sion James is a tank. Your guy, Josh Green, what does he do again, Grant?
He passes on. I almost texted you because I was watching that the Pistons Hornets game with the fight.
Wait, can we talk really quick? Isn't it so cool that everyone was already watching that game before the fight took place? Like Pistons Hornets was a point. Like that was awesome.
That was my no doubt. That was like when you go through the games every day. I was like, that's number one. I'm definitely watching that, and then was rewarded with fireworks. Josh Green 100% made a good pass on the move, and I was ready to like screen cap it and text you about it. So yeah.
So that like having, and then also just Knipple size. I'm restating a lot of what I said to Mort in the podcast about where we talked more about the Hornets. Their bigs have been way better. I think Moussa Diabate is going to get, like, there are going to be bigs that give him problems. Jalen Duren would probably be one of them. And we kind of saw that in real time, but their defense it's not just shooting luck for me. And I don't think if they're healthy, I don't have questions about their offense. When you have Brandon Miller, Knipple, and LaMelo Ball is just like, plus now we're integrating Kobe White into the equation, which I finally landed on after thinking about it more. I really do think it's going to end up being a functional upgrade for them because of the different ways you can use them offensively. You said it. You kind of alluded to it before. If they play the Pistons in the first round, no, I'm probably not picking them, but look at how tough they played them. Yes, it's one game, but
they were in that game. They were in it.
If the Pistons, like if the Charlotte's offense is better for a few games against the Pistons defense, the Pistons offense isn't unsolvable for Charlotte, especially if Charlotte's defense is getting set. And the offense just might be so good that if they play the Knicks or the Celtics in the first round, yes, I'm picking the Knicks or the Celtics, but is it outside the realm of possibility that, the Knicks can't guard Charlotte's offense, or, Boston, like they're a little bit more, like for Charlotte to guard Boston's offense with whatever version of Jason Tatum we get feels reasonable to me. And I think this speaks to the state of the Eastern Conference a little bit. Sure. It just would not, if we get a 7-2 upset or an 8-1 upset, without knowing the teams or the conference, I'm just assuming it was the Hornets that did it.
Yeah. I think one of the best things about the Hornets, at least, over the last however many weeks, this is a little sports talky, and we like to be a little more thoughtful about it, but like, you do get the sense when you watch them that they're just like, they're not intimidated by like the better teams. They really do have this maybe it's because they don't have anything to lose or some that kind of thing. I don't know how many cliches I can cram in, but like they very much think they belong in this. Like they're playing the Pistons, they're up for the physicality. Like LaMelo's not really phased, but despite Asar Thompson just being like glued, like that's just all to say. as an upset pick, they make a lot of sense because, like, to them, it wouldn't be an upset. They're just like, yeah, no, we belong in this series. Like, we're not, the Pistons, real scary. Like, they're not put off by that kind of thing, and that's a good quality to have as a potential upset.
I'm going to warn everybody right now that if they finish the season healthy, whether they're in the playoffs or not, if they get into the playoffs and win multiple games in a series, I'm going to be calling for them to do something so reckless over the offseason. Like, just everybody be prepared for it. It's coming.
Good to know. Thanks for the heads up.
So our final question, we did a whole episode on tanking. I don't want to talk about that. This is more so quick because we honestly just don't know. Wasn't post All-Star pegged as, well, we're going to get some more details on the Clippers aspiration investigation, but every time Pablo Torre comes out with what feels like another smoking gun, it's, how is this investigation going to close anytime soon? Because have the lawyers found all of this stuff yet, or are they just like following Pablo Torre's lead at this point?
We can't talk about this at all without just conceding it's full speculation, because nobody knows anything, at least publicly. At least, I mean, well, we know a lot, but we don't know what the NBA is ready to say. Like, here's what we concede happened. Here's the punishment. I feel like this question is most interesting, the result side of it, in terms of like, what will the league do to the Clippers and Kawhi, right? Like, that's really what we want to know. And doesn't some part of you view the Harden, like, getting out of town in the dead of night thing as him being like, yeah, I can see where this is going. Kawhi is going to get suspended for a huge chunk of next year, or just the contract. That's just,
can they suspend?
It's not a dead giveaway. It's not a dead giveaway, but Harden bouncing without like any real like lead up to this time.
Yeah, his trade demands normally have a preamble. This one
usually, usually it's like, here's the first
two missed games for personal reasons or whatever it ended up being. That's not a classic James Harden exit.
Not enough of a heads up by his standards, right? He didn't call any executives liars. He didn't wear a fat suit. Like, usually there's a playbook, and he just didn't follow it. He just said, we got to get out of here. I have no way of knowing this, but it feels unlikely that they'll void Kawhi's contract.
What I was going to say is, if you wanted to Galaxy brain it, James Harden wanting out, to me, felt like evidence they might, because he's not going to care about the first round picks.
No,
they took away the Clippers' first round picks. I got to get out. Players don't think that way. By the way, terrible idea to have a tournament to determine who gets the Adam Silver solution to everything is let's have a tournament. Yeah.
Let's add 6 more games to the regular season for this tournament. I feel like a suspension, like a sizable, like 25 games, like 50 feels like a lot.
I was going to ask you, can Kawhi actually be penalized for this? Can a player circumvent the salary cap?
And circumvent... I mean, you could couch it as like, there's all this evidence that he and his representation were asking for all this stuff, and you want to set the precedent of, don't do that, because teams are going to be like, yeah, okay. Maybe It's almost easier to punish that side of it than the team. Because you're right. Like, I don't know. I'm process of elimination. Voiding his contract feels like, holy I would be surprised. Like, wouldn't you be surprised if that was what happened? A suspension just feels like a softer middle ground type of punishment. It feels like that's where this is headed.
I honestly hadn't given a thought to him being suspended. I'm just at the point where, based off everything we've seen, heard from Pablo Torre, and like you said, it's all speculation, they're going to be docked multiple first-round picks, right? I think that at a minimum, feels like a given.
At a minimum, the pick thing, because at least, like, I don't know, I keep viewing this so cynically, like, the league doesn't want to maybe like acknowledge the seriousness of this with like some unprecedented punishment. And so it's easier to say like, well, Joe Smith, this is what happened with Joe Smith. We docked a bunch of picks. So let's definitely do that. Like that's a given. Don't you think though, that if that's all that happened, everybody would be like, that's not nearly enough from like a PR standpoint.
Yeah, you're right. That's why I was wondering if James Harden getting out of Dodge was more about the Kawhi Leonard contract being voided.
I think it's related to what will happen to Kawhi, but I just couldn't get to the, like, we nuke the contract.
Here's a question. Well, here's a really serious question, I need you to answer. How can this be solved by hosting some sort of tournament? My actual question is
winner
Kawhi
gets
Leonard.
Kawhi.
Is Kawhi Leonard available to the Clippers on opening night next season?
No. Either because he's not on the team or he's not allowed to play.
Yeah, just available to them. Yeah,
I don't think
for
so.
non-health issues though. Let's assume he's healthy.
Well,
Is he available to the Clippers?
Oh, that's such an easy answer if you get to have the health piece in there. No, will a healthy Kawhi Leonard be available to play basketball for the Clippers on opening night in 2026? I don't think so.
I'm just gonna say no. I might be a doomer, or maybe I'm underestimating the NBA's ability to pretzel twist and figure out a way to. We didn't find anything. All this stuff. The inconsistencies too, where they're saying that the big one for me, like I don't know if you listen to the latest Pablo Torre finds out about this, but where they said they terminated the relationship at some point, and it's like, no, they didn't. They were still, and I guess there could have been a disconnect between their social media team, but then you find paperwork to show that it wasn't terminated. This is just on everything that's public, and you can't get mad if like, well, there's stuff hiding behind the scenes that we don't know it. Then they could be more transparent about it. And I had forgotten how ridiculous until that Pablo Torre episode, Lawrence Frank's response to Ramona Shelburne's question was, towards
like, we're aware of the rules. They're aware of the rules.
We're aware of the rules. And that's okay. What is the answer? Yes. Is that yes or no? Yes, we're aware of the rules. You fucking did it. I'm sorry. That smirk at the end too. I was like, oh, they're guilty. And I didn't even think about this, but this is purely speculative. People viewing the Lawrence Frank extension as hush money is just
right.
If this is where we're at, it feels like multiple first-round picks. I would say a fine, north of 10, 25 million, 50? Is it going to be? It's
got to be massive because, well, you say that, I say that, and then it's like, what's the number that could make Steve Ballmer like blink? You know, like that's why maybe the voiding the contract is more likely in light of that, because like you sort of can't fine him enough for it to matter. So maybe they could get really creative and just be like, picks gone, Kawhi contract voided. You are like, what else could even be if we're just totally trying to make it hurt? Like, what else could the league even do? Just like, because like in college, you know,
relegate
you get
them to the Eastern Conference, like, or would that be a reward?
You don't get to be in the playoffs. Doesn't matter how well you play. Like, no playoffs for you. Or like, you don't get the payout from, well, this doesn't apply to them, but like, if you're ever in a position to get like your share of like luxury tax money, you don't get it. Or I don't know. Like there's got to be like a team. Yeah. There's got to be like a team building thing.
How long has Kawhi been in LA now?
I don't know, 6 years. Look it up.
Is that enough if they said you are going to be docked 1 first-round pick for every year that Kawhi Leonard has been on this team?
So then you're going out
one. Oh, it's more than 6, Grant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So then you're
not getting a first-round pick again until 2030. Because first of all, they don't have one again until 2030. So it's 30, 31, and 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. So their next first-round pick would be 2037.
God, I mean, that would hurt. Like, that would really...
And do they make it 8 because he has another year left on his contract if they're not?
There you go. Yeah, I mean, because it can't be money. It's just like that's never gonna matter. So it's got to be.
At some point, though, aren't you punishing? This is what I can't. You're punishing the fans, then, though. Too.
Yeah. I mean, the only certainty here is they're like, there's not a good way to handle this. Like, there's no just punishment that doesn't have a ton of collateral damage. Like the fans are going to suffer no matter what. It's just, how do you balance that concern against, we have to draw a line somehow and use this punishment as a signal of like, if you do this type of thing, it's gonna really hurt you. And the problem is like, even that doesn't hurt Ballmer because like his life doesn't change, you know, it doesn't matter.
I think from a competitive integrity standpoint, it needs to be historically significant, whatever they're doing. So maybe we view it as, well, that's not hurting Ballmer. That's not enough. But you know what? It was markedly more than the Timberwolves were punished for Joe Smith. Mm-hmm. And just that, and I'm curious, I would need to know if they come to the conclusion that there was nothing untoward here, what's the smoking gun that proves nothing untoward happened?
There isn't one. I don't think. There's too much. There's too many different like arms of this that are all like incriminating. So yeah, I will say it is incredible how effectively this story has been memory holed like during the season. The fact that we went like months without really talking about it or thinking about it is amazing. Like the way that the league and just, I don't know, probably it's more about us and our inability to like pay attention to anything for more than 10 seconds. But like, it's wild to me that this should have just been top of mind like all the time. There hasn't really been a bigger story than this.
Well,
maybe people don't care.
Well, I think there's just oversaturated with information and maybe much more negative information, like breaking scientific findings are actually inaccurate because we decided that these scientific, so stuff like that. But also that speaks to, is it the attention span or more so the oversaturation of all these other things to focus on, whether it's inside or outside of sports, because of, I guess that is an extension of short attention span at that point. But you're right. This is the only reason we're probably even talking about it as consistently or as often as we have, is because Pablo Torre has continued like a semi-steady stream of like he has kept this, if not center, like close to the center, like just off center. And that's an accomplishment in this day and age, I would say.
It is. And it is like, I guess like I'm catching myself because you're right. Like there's just, it's, you open your phone and it's like, what fresh hell today? It's like hard to make the Clippers matter in like a fully zoomed out scope. But like, as far as this, and if you care about the NBA, this thing has not gotten the coverage that it should have, like in terms of like a day-to-day thing. But maybe that, I don't know. It's hopefully we get something after the All-Star break, because that's been, if we don't get anything until like the off season, that's going to be deeply annoying, because the whole theory was just like, well, we got the All-Star game at the Intuit Dome. We can't. They should
announce it at halftime of the All-Star game. That'd be really fun.
You want people to care about the All-Star game, which they don't at all. We just construct a courtroom, a TV set of a courtroom on center court. Don't play the All-Star game, and we litigate the Aspiration scandal on TV. How about that?
We have some breaking news, Grant, before we move on. Free agent Malik Beasley has signed a deal to play with Bad Bunny's team in Puerto Rico, the Santurce Crabbers, both parties tell ESPN. The team season begins in March. Beasley has been under NBA and FBI investigations for gambling allegations. This is per Shams. I didn't see that one coming.
You could have given me a lot of guesses about the team. It would take me a while to get to Bad Bunny's Puerto Rico.
Crabbers is such an awesome name for a team.
It is solid. What's the competition level there, do you think? How many teams are there? Tell me everything you know about the Puerto Rican basketball league.
Well, Grant, they run. I have no idea. Which seems like I think this feels like the right time that we move on. So with that all being said, we are now moving on to stat padding. Grant, lots of goodies that I didn't even sync up with you beforehand. They're all a lot of fun. So how would you like to start? Do you want to do a solo one, or do you want to do a joint one together?
Let's do a joint one. That sounds fun.
I think it sounds fun as well. So let me find the joint ones that we have. Okay. This is fun. I'll read this one. You can read the next one. This is great. Grant, we have been administered truth serum. What is one hot or against the grain take you're afraid to get off your chest, but now you have no choice but to share?
All right. I have a couple here. I would say, like, first of all, is this just bait so that we get, like, I catch a lot of heat? Is that your intention here? It's like, tell me what you really think.
You're so online that I want to ruin your mental health when people get so mad at your take by spamming the comments.
I won't ever see it. I'll give you one that I feel like you could have guessed based on how I've discussed it in the past. But I think that Jonathan Kuminga deserves 95% of the blame for how things went badly between him and the Warriors. And that is entirely because I think food is sacred and should be apportioned out. No, like, here's the thing.
Too
I go
much
to
food.
bat.
Did you see that quote card, by the way?
Really funny.
That's
Really
so
funny.
great.
The food is only like a small fraction of it's a not insignificant part of this. Here's the thing. I always go to bat for Steve Kerr, and I always point to like, show me the guy that would have, he doesn't run pick and roll. And he's screwing Kuminga and this, that. Over the years, I'm always just like, show me the guy that wins the 5th championship with Draymond Green doing all the Draymond Green stuff and all the pressure and all, like, manages all these personalities. Show me the coach that gets you not 4, but 5. And I'll stop going to bat for Steve Kerr anytime there's like a one side or the other situation. It's not going to happen.
This is not mine, but I would just counter by saying I think it's maybe 95 to 99% of Joe Lacob's fault.
Well, that's too many percents. I'm
just saying, you gave, how much did he contribute to Jonathan Kuminga having this superstar complex? And you didn't leave. I would say, even if you're not going to blame him for drafting Kuminga, that stuff can be sensationalized, sure. And anyone who's not Vivek Ranadive or James Dolan, I'm probably willing to give the benefit of the doubt when it comes to transactional decisions. You still hamstrung your team by viewing him so highly. You were enamored by him, and you didn't let your basketball people make all of the basketball decisions. And I understand billionaires can get high on their own supply, and that's why they're billionaires in the first place. But that just seems so dumb. And it kind of tethered the Warriors to this player who was never an archetypal fit for the way that they wanted to play. You were going to have to sort of rewire him. And when it became clear it wasn't working, there was over a year. It had to be like a year and a half where Jonathan Kuminga probably had real trade value, and you just sat on it.
If from a buck stops here perspective, you're right, because Joe Lacob is the guy that ultimately decides what happens with the team. And but where I run into why I focus on Kuminga, because I'm viewing it as like, is it Kuminga or is it Kerr / like the Warriors and how they used him? To me, that's where the 95% Kuminga side of it comes in. Because like, unless you think that Lacob is entirely responsible for Kuminga's perception of like the type of player he thinks that he is, which I don't. I think that's what he believed, and maybe what other people in his orbit, like agents or family members or whatever, like had, talked him into, or at least like supported. I just think like the idea of having to rewire a teenage rookie is insane to me. Cause like, you made the NBA. That's incredible. You obviously have ridiculous talent and self-belief and all that stuff, but it's like, fit in at least at the start, like try that and see what it gets you. And he never made a sincere effort, like talking about like citing that Timberwolves series last postseason as like the reason that it just reinforced, because he had like 23 and 30 and 16 and 20 or whatever. And it's like, your team lost all those games. So you didn't prove anything. Like the idea that he gave an honest shot to doing what the team asked him to do in a role-playing capacity is like such BS to me, because it was never viewed by him, I don't think, as like, I don't know, a preferable alternative to just like, entitlement is such a loaded term, but it's just like, do the stuff your coach wants you to do. Like, why is that such a difficult concept? So to me, it's just him never embracing just the harder road, or like the like, this guy might know better road. This guy, okay, people that have won 4 championships playing a certain way, like just try that at least in an honest way for a long time and see what it gets you. I just don't feel like that was ever like given a shot. So I don't know. This is too long for a stat padding, but
you're wrong. No, I'm just kidding. The only thing I can't get over is, maybe I'm reading too much into this because they were highlighting the ridiculous of the too much food anecdote. Steph going into the comments and saying, go be great. The Warriors team, especially Draymond Green, speaks very codedly. It never felt like there was this real disdain for Jonathan Kuminga among the vets. It felt like everything was anonymously sourced and through, and I'm not saying they weren't at points. And so I'm just wondering, I would love to give those, speaking of truth serum, I'd love to give those two, or Steph Curry specifically, truth serum, and see who he thinks is mostly to blame for this.
I view that, again, shocker, more as like a sign of like how like professional and just like kind of savvy and wise like the vets on the team are. than I do as like an endorsement of Kuminga was wronged and they all believed that. Because I do think you would have gotten more direct in another situation. You would have gotten more like either this guy is like his head is way too big or the team is being unfair to him. I feel like all the players just consistently like he's our teammate, we support him, we like him. They said all the right things. Even Kerr said the right things most of the time. But it just I don't know. The blame to me is always going to lie with him just failing to do the small things first and just wanting more than his production and effectiveness dictated he should get. Because it's not like there was ever a sustained period where the Warriors won and it was because he was playing the role that he really wanted. That just didn't exist. So I just that's kind of where I land on it.
Would you like to know mine?
Very much so.
I don't think that Amen Thompson's ever going to be an all-star. I've sort of become not turned off by him as a player. The fact that he's made so many things work offensively in what you could maybe consider less than ideal spacing, but I don't know what else is he supposed to do with better. Do you view him as someone who has a good enough handle to be a primary facilitator? Do you view him as enough of a good enough playmaker to do that? I think there's always going to be so many functional limitations from him on the offensive end that as the nuclear athleticism starts to wane, I don't know how you go about navigating that. And to me, it feels like he might have this half-decade window or something, not to be a really good player, but before we kind of move away from the fact, how is he going to be mentioned? Who's mentioned Alperen Sengun, Kevin Durant even this season? And Amen Thompson's had a fantastic season. Now, the defensive baseline is going to get him in a lot of discussions, but is he ever going to get into actual All-NBA, which is you kind of fall into the Rudy Gobert trap there. So Rudy Gobert would just have more All-NBA appearances if defense was weighted as heavily as offense was.
I love that take. I think, unfortunately, I'm kind of coming around to it. I would frame it a little bit as like he's never going to matter to like winning as much as like the perception seems to be. But the All-Stars, that like puts a clear delineation. I think the way to think about that one is like, who's the example of a player that had the skills he has and then the massive weakness and then like fixed it? And the name that came to mind was like, what about like Jimmy Butler? Because like, didn't he come in as like mostly a defender, really athletic, like the kind of similar frame. And then it's like, well, but he shot 38% from three in his second year. And then he shot 38% in his fourth year and averaged 20. So it's just like, I don't know who that guy is. Doesn't mean it can't ever happen, but honestly, I think for both Thompsons, like we're at a point now where if the shot isn't there, it's not just like, oh, they're at 30%. It's like Thompson's at like 20. Amen Thompson's at like 20 on threes. And he's just like, by a lot of measures, the worst jump shooter in the league. I just don't know how you get to the point where that's passable.
His efficiency is so far below average everywhere away from the basket. So it's not even just he needs a 3-point shot. Is the floater falling at a higher enough clip? And the answer is no. And I also just wonder if he has to, what's the way that he can move off the ball is great, but then that still insists that you have a better offensive player who can get him the ball and find him. And if you want to put him on the ball, what does that team, like if he needs to be your primary on-ball source, what does the rest of that team need to look like?
Yeah, no, it's the roster building concerns are massive. And just like the impact of the shooting struggles on his ability to contribute in other ways. Like you don't have to guard him, honestly. So if he becomes an even better pick and roll operator, it sort of doesn't matter as much because you still just don't need to worry about, I can go under every time. I never need to chase him over a screen. It doesn't matter if he has the ball all the time. So it's a lot to overcome.
Let's move on here. Do you want to take us to, you alluded to it before, one LeBron James?
The LeBron James next team should be, yes. All right. So here's a couple of things as we're deciding, Dan, who should LeBron play for next? It cannot be the Lakers or the Cavs. Money doesn't matter. Let's just say he can sign wherever he wants for the minimum. We'll break it into a couple categories. I would like you to tell me from a basketball IQ porn standpoint, where would you like to see LeBron go? And then let me know his best overall fit. What team would you like to see him with?
My two picks, let's start with basketball porn. Would LeBron and Jokic be the two like highest IQ pair, like the highest IQ pairing we've ever seen in NBA history? It would have to be up there.
Chris Paul's a free agent right now. I don't know if you know that.
He retired though, so is he really a free agent anymore?
He could come back. I love that. Like, why wouldn't you want to see LeBron and Jokic? Like, what kind of backdoor passes and stuff would you get?
Do you think LeBron would move away from the ball? Like, I think Jokic gets everyone talks about, does LeBron set enough screens or move away from the ball enough? I just feel if you play alongside Jokic, you end up doing those things, no matter the archetype of player that you are.
And not only that, but like, this will get into some of why I like him in some other spots. Like, he shot like 47% on catch and shoot threes 2 years ago, like 42 last year, 35 this year, not so hot. But like, there's a world where mostly what he does is like be a swing pass recipient and either shoot or like find the next brilliant cutter on the weak side. Like, that works.
And the shape that he is still in, assuming he's healthy and the way he takes care of his body, does Denver just have an even bigger home court advantage because it's LeBron's conditioning versus everybody else's?
Love that one. That's a good one. Yeah.
My actual, if it was just pure basketball or maybe most realistic, I kind of think the Knicks, because he would have a bigger role on the ball. Just they have Jalen Brunson still, and it's who else on that team? If the team stays the same, are you giving the ball over LeBron aside from Brunson? The answer is nobody.
Nobody.
So you could insert him into the starting lineup instead of Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, LeBron, and Karl-Anthony Towns. Sounds like an Eastern Conference favorite to me. In my totally unbiased opinion.
Mine, well, you're going to love this. So just the basketball IQ side of it. How about Charlotte? Because I don't know if you know this, but LaMelo Ball, pretty creative guy, passing wise, sees the floor pretty well, gets you out in transition, does some exciting things. Concanipple, also really smart. Brandon Miller, I wouldn't put him on either of their levels, but like as a third ball handler is like really good for the position that he's at. And then you add a fourth in LeBron to that, and just Miles Bridges take a hike. Your power forward minutes all go to LeBron now. That would be that. It'll never happen because why is he going to Charlotte? But man, that would be exciting. I think that would be
the no TV after dinner on a school night energy he would bring to that locker room would be right. Absurd.
He's got like a 12 to 15 year, maybe more than that. Oh my God. Yeah. He's real dad energy to get on board there. My best overall fit though, I mean, it can't be Cleveland because the fit then is just like mostly narrative based, and also like he could make sense next to Jared Allen or Evan Mobley at the 4. That totally works. Or he could just be a 3 in supersized lineups. That's fine. What about the Pistons? Because the spot we focus on for them is power forward, which is the Tobias Harris spot, the one we wanted to be filled, a while ago by Lauri Markkanen and later by MPJ. You put LeBron there. Defensively is where he's slipping. Fine. You've got a million guys that can guard up, can guard down. He just is always guarding the least threatening opponent. You get a secondary creator, which still is a need there, where Cade does just everything. At the very least, LeBron can be like a connector, a facilitator there. Mm-hmm. And to cite the same catch and shoot stuff, like I trust him as much on an open 3 as I trust Tobias Harris. I don't think you're giving anything away there. And then maybe that is the move that really does put the Pistons over the top. And we're talking about them as just like, as long as LeBron is close to what he is now, they're just runaway favorites in the East.
I would just like to say I'm both shocked and proud you didn't pick the Warriors for LeBron, Steph, Perry.
Yeah, that'd be the easy one.
I've got 2 for you before we skedaddle from this. Are you ready for them? I think you're going to enjoy these.
So ready.
Laughing here. Sorry, hold on. Grant, 8 NBA players have recorded a 50-point triple-double. How many of them can you name? I will give you 3 strikes.
50-point triple-double.
Impressive.
Nobody jumps to mind. So that's a problem. I just got to go with the usual suspects. I'll say Jokic.
Jokic is a correct answer. He has 2 of them.
Okay. I'll say Russ.
Russ is also a correct answer. He has 4.
I'll go James Harden.
Is also a correct answer. He has 5.
We're just
all-time leader,
here.
In case you care, is James Harden with 5.
5 is the high. Okay. Now it gets tougher. I'll say Luka's done it.
He has done it once.
Okay.
4 of 8 with 0 strikes. Look at you.
Well, the strikes are going to come fast and furious here in a minute. A 50-point triple double. This is one where there's always like a relatively recent player that I'm not going to remember. How's about? I don't think he's done it, but the volume that gives you LeBron. Has LeBron done it?
He has not. That's strike 1.
I knew it. 50 point triple double. I don't want to ask you for hints yet, but I also don't want a bunch of dead air while I'm just sitting here.
I'll give you a hint.
Oh,
none of them are active players remaining.
All right. No active players with a 50-point triple double. Well, this is the question. How far back does it go? Because like Oscar Robertson has to be a guess. If he's not in it, then I know we don't go back that far.
That is strike 2.
Okay. So that's going to rule out a lot of throwback guys. 50 in a triple double. I'm going to say, how about Shaq?
That is incorrect. Strike 3.
Okay.
That's a bummer. I was rooting for you, buddy.
Thank you. I got half of them. That's pretty good.
So you got half of them. James Harden, Nikola Jokic, Russell Westbrook, Luka Doncic have all had a 50-point triple double, at least one. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had one.
Oh, I gave up on him after Oscar was out. Damn it.
Wilt Chamberlain had 2. I thought you were going to get
on him too.
Elgin Baylor had 2. And finally, this is the one I didn't think you were going to get. Richie Guerin had 1.
Do not know who that is. That's tough. So Oscar didn't do it, and then I was out because I was like, oh, they're just not going back that far. That's tough.
I didn't know whether to come in there and say, and maybe if I pronounced it correctly, Richie Guerin, would that make you feel apparently the pronunciation's wrong there? His nickname was the Leatherneck, and he's in the Hall of Fame, Grant. Come on, man.
Was he active from like 1948 to 1954?
He played 56 through. He made it to the 1970s.
When you get 50-point triple doubles, you got the skill to last.
So half of them solid showing, but I thought you would have gotten more though. So I'm a little disappointed. I was rooting for you.
Yeah, I talked myself out of anybody before like 1990 with the Oscar thing. I do have a couple trade related stat paddings for you.
Let's sit on those until trades. Now that the trade deadline's passed, I have one more for you.
Oh,
that I have insanely high hopes for
great.
you. Not to put any more pressure on you, but Grant, 8 NBA teams have gone at least 7 years without winning a playoff series. How many of those 8 teams can you name? You will once again get 3 strikes.
Well, my Warriors have got to be one of those.
Strike 1.
What? That's hard.
Grant,
didn't win a
playoff series in the past 7 years.
Oh, the past 7 years? I thought you meant 7 years in franchise history.
Yeah, sorry. I went their streak. Let's reframe.
Erase the strike. Erase the strike immediately.
Grant, 8 NBA teams have playoff series victory droughts of at least 7 years running currently. How many of these teams can you name? I will give you 3 strikes.
All right. The Kings.
No. Yes, that the Kings are on here. That streak, in case you care, is going to extend to 22 seasons after this year.
I think the Mitchell Gobert ones are not 7 years ago, so I will not say the Jazz. The Bulls.
The Chicago Bulls are on the list. It'll be 11 if they don't win a playoff series this year, which they will not.
This is harder than I thought it would be. I guess, man, so that Wizards one was like set. I'll say the Wizards.
The Wizards are on there. They are about to have season number 9 of a playoff series victory drought.
Oh, man, I got to go with the Hawks.
That is incorrect. Strike 1.
Oh, no. I must have forgot one in there.
They were just to the conference finals in 2020.
Oh shit, that's right. That's terrible.
If you needed any more proof how fake that was, according to Grant,
that should count as like 2 strikes. That's awful. See Trae Young bowing at center court right now. Okay, let's see. Dallas, Memphis is 1-1. I'm just going through all the teams. How long ago was that Blazers phony conference finals appearance? I'm gonna go Blazers.
Strike 2.
Dang, this is harder than I thought it would be.
The Blazers, if they don't win a playoff series this season, their streak will reach 7 years, but they're not there right now.
So, all right. There's got to be. Can you tell me how long the streak is for the longest available streak, just so I know like how off I am?
Active longest streak is tied between the Kings, which was 21 going on 22, and this team.
There's another team that hasn't made won a playoff series in
over 20 years.
Charlotte.
That is correct.
Okay.
But you know what? They're about to break that streak, Grant.
Yeah, they are. They're going to knock off the Pistons or the Celtics. Hard to say which.
You have 4 teams remaining. I can give you the length of their playoff series drought.
Sure. Give me the length of the longest one.
17.
Oh boy. A playoff series went 17 years? Man. I have a guess, but I really will feel terrible if it's not this team. How about the Pistons?
They are 17. If they don't win this year, it'll be 18, but they feel like a team that'll break that streak.
So 3 more to go?
Yes. The next longest streak, 15 years without winning a playoff series.
15. Ooh. I don't feel confident here, but I'm going to go with the Magic.
That is correct. You're on fire. The Orlando Magic need to win a playoff series not to make it 16.
Those Dwight Howard years, a long time ago.
That's 6 teams you got. You have 2 left. The next longest streak is 8 years without a playoff series victory. And my prediction is this is where your third strike comes.
Okay. The Pelicans came to mind because I want to say they beat the Blazers because the Warriors got them in a second round series. Maybe I could be imagining that, or they beat somebody who has not won a playoff series in 8 years. 8 years. I will say, oh man, is it the Spurs?
Oh, you got it. 8. One more team.
You're really playing with fire if you pick the Spurs for like historic futility records.
I didn't think you were going to get, I thought just the recency of it all or their longevity that you weren't going to pick them.
So I just have run out of options that seem obvious to me. So I'm going to say Phoenix.
That's strike 3.
Okay.
You were on to something with the Pelicans. Their streak is about to extend to 8 years.
Okay.
That was
like Drew Holiday did something cool in that playoff run.
7 of 8. That's not bad. And you got the team that I didn't think you were. I thought you were going to go out on the Spurs, and you went out on the Pelicans, which is rough stuff.
Well, I also guessed the Warriors first, so it didn't start out so hot.
That was bad framing by me. It was. We should reframe it at the end. It was Grant. You have 3 strikes to guess the 8 teams with the longest active playoff series victory droughts. That's how we should have worded it. Andrew, if you're listening to the end of this, throw that in the front as the start off so people understand what we're talking about. Do you have anything else, or are you ready to take us out of here, sir?
I think that'll do it. Thanks, everybody, for listening, for watching. Thank you for excusing my nomination of the Warriors as a playoff series drought team. We're all in the All-Star break, aren't we? Remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Remember to tell your friends and tell your enemies. Join our Discord. Links for that in the YouTube and podcast description. I think that's going to do it. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Dan. Shouts, Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared Allen.